Collective, welcome or welcome back. I am the Nosy Witch, and this is my channel, Nosy Witch Tarot. This reading is all about the compliments that you receive behind your back. I thought this would be a fun and interesting reading. And the reason I wanted to do this reading and explore the compliments that you receive behind your back is honestly because, firstly, I truly believe that you deserve to be hyped up, you deserve to hear those things. And these might be things that you don't always get the opportunity to hear. You know, it is February and it is Valentine's Day coming up, and although I have a reading planned for around Valentine's Day, more focused on potential secret admirers and like love interests and things like that, I think ultimately love often starts with self-love. And yes, while self-love can be an individual journey and that's something you have to build yourself, I believe that we are all on that same journey and we can help each other out by complimenting each other more, by hyping each other, by sharing more of that love with our friends, with our family, with our colleagues, with the people around us who we really appreciate, but maybe we don't always express that appreciation. You deserve to give that love out, and you also deserve to receive that love back. So I am very happy to deliver that message today. I am all about hyping people up, I'm all about making people feel good. And I'm all about giving compliments when you very much deserve to hear them. Another thing that kind of made me think of this, that kind of inspired me, is something that I remembered that I experienced from a long time ago. I won't go into the whole story because, you know, it's a very long-winded story and my readings are already quite long-winded, so we won't go into all of that, but essentially, I had been engaging with some form of counselling a number of years back for my mental health. And honestly, without going into too much unnecessary depth, I've had struggles with my mental health since a pretty young age. And I have sought out various forms of therapy, of counselling, and things like that. However, this one lady who I did a number of counselling sessions with encouraged me to participate in the following activity. And nobody prior to that had really encouraged me to do that, but it's something that really stuck with me because it did actually genuinely help. So basically, she asked me to reach out to the people I was close to in my life, and if I felt comfortable doing so, I was advised to ask these people to write a list of the things they like about me. So I'm pretty sure that I only asked like my mum and a couple of friends. I didn't ask too many people. But all of the people that I did ask did respond very quickly, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised by the responses and the compliments that I was given, things that I didn't even really realize about myself. It's like they had this big whole long list of things they liked, and I didn't even know that they liked those things, like they'd never expressed that before. And I don't mean that like my friends and family never give me compliments, because they very often do. I think it's very normal when we meet up with friends and, you know, we've not seen them in a while. Obviously you catch up on what's going on in your life, but often we do get compliments like you look amazing, or you look so good, like what have you been doing, or I love your outfit, or something like that. And while all of that is absolutely wonderful, there's nothing wrong with getting compliments about your appearance. All of that is very nice. It's nice to be hyped up in those ways as well. It might be a bit more rare that you would ever receive a compliment that goes into more depth about why that person liked you and why they want to spend time with you. And it's not that they don't think it, it's just that sometimes when you've been friends with people for a long time, it's a given that they like you, that they want to spend time with you, that they think you're a good person. Like that kind of comes with the territory of friendship. And you don't really go into the why, you just kind of naturally gravitate towards each other and you enjoy each other's company, but you don't always explicitly say, this is why I enjoy your company, or things like that. You just meet someone, you click, and the friendship kind of naturally grows, and it's obvious that you both like each other, but maybe you never explicitly discuss the whys. And at first, when my counsellor had asked me to do this, I was like, oh no, I'm not looking forward to this. I'm going to find this kind of thing so cringy. I do often struggle with accepting compliments at times. So I did think to myself, I am not going to ask about this in real life. I'm going to text these couple of friends and ask them, and then they can text me back so we don't have to look each other in the eye and be all soppy and, be complimenting each other. But I received some very beautiful and specific responses, and it really gave me a boost. And I think it's important, to not necessarily rely on other people for validation, especially strangers. Like if somebody doesn't know you very well or somebody random on the internet, you don't have to rely on that person for validation. But with friends and family, the people who you surround yourself with, the people whose opinions you genuinely care about and you want to hear feedback from, it can be really encouraging for them to give you that little bit of confidence, that little confidence boost. And those compliments could just absolutely make your day. So, if that's something you've not done before, I would actually encourage you to do that with your group of friends or your family, and you can do it back for them as well. It's something that we don't necessarily, or we wouldn't even think to do very often, but it can have a very big positive impact on the person that you're complimenting. I don't think there is any need for people to be stingy with compliments. I think there is enough love in the world to go round. And if we like something about somebody, we should tell them. We should be more open about that. It doesn't have to be like super soppy if you're not into that. And if this is something that could be uncomfortable for you, then, you don't have to go into specific detail, but just telling someone the things that you like about them in a funny way, even, can just really make someone happy, make someone's day. And I think that's so important that we do that more. To this day, it's an activity that I still think of. And no other counsellor has asked me to do that, but it definitely made a positive impact on me. But that said, if that is something you don't feel comfortable doing right now to your partner, to your friendship circle, to your family, then I've got you covered with this reading, because we're going to look at all the compliments people give you behind your back, reasons they admire you, the things that they like about you but don't necessarily tell you. So that is going to be something that I'm spilling the tea on in this reading. Okay, so with that said, we are going to be starting the first portion of the reading with our usual energy check / oracle card reading, and you are going to pick from one of these 4 piles. And then we are going to be looking at the oracle cards in your pile. I've chosen about 4 oracle cards for each pile today, so we're going to be looking at 4 cards. But then, as usual, the second portion of the reading will be a more in-depth exploration of this energy, and we will look at that by looking at the tarot cards. As I always say, all the decks that I use today, I will provide a link for down below. Some of the decks that I own have been gifted to me by friends and family over the years, so I might not necessarily be able to find the exact deck that I purchased. However, I will find a link to a deck somewhere. I will pop the timestamps in the description below and also in the comments. I know I had a comment recently on my What Makes You Attractive video, and it was somebody who I believe was struggling to see the timestamps because they'd asked if I could put timestamps on my next video. So from this point forward, I will try and pin the comment with the timestamps. For my previous videos, I honestly just didn't think that I would need to pin the comment because I thought I'm probably going to be the only person commenting. I don't have a lot of viewers yet, and that's absolutely fine. But the attractive video has got a fair few comments now, so maybe I need to do that going forward. Again, I'm still learning all this YouTube stuff. It's quite unfamiliar territory for me, so, bear with me as I learn things. Thank you for being understanding. I do always leave the timestamps in the description. It's just you might have to scroll down a little bit past my long-winded rants in order to find them, but they will always be there. So please be aware of that. Also, disclaimer, I'm wearing my dog walking jumper, so I'm sorry if it's got dog hairs on it and that annoys you, but it's just comfy, so I'm wearing it. Okay, so let's have a look at the piles. Over here on this side, we have pile 1 and the clear crystal tower. Pile 1 and the clear crystal tower. Here we have pile 2 and the sage green tower. Pile 2 and the sage green tower. Here we have pile 3 and the forest green crystal tower. Pile 3 and the forest green crystal tower. And here we have pile 4 and the deep purple crystal tower. Pile 4 and the deep purple crystal tower. So I would recommend using your intuition to see which pile is calling to you. Please pause the video if you need to do that in order to connect with your intuition and, just see which pile is pulling you in. If for whatever reason you are disconnected from your intuition today, please feel free to use a random number picker online to pick a pile for you. You are more than welcome to choose more than one pile. If more than one pile is calling to you, there might be multiple messages in these piles for you. If you are just finding that none of the piles are calling to you, or if you pick a pile and it feels wrong, please feel free to go back and select a different pile. But if just none of them whatsoever are resonating, that is more than okay. These readings are intended to be timeless, so this might not be your reading right now, there might not be messages in here for you right now, but there could be in the future, so please feel free to come back at any time. There are plenty of other readings and plenty of other readers out there. I will not be offended if you don't want to listen to mine right now. You are always very welcome to come back at any point and listen to these readings when you are feeling more drawn to one of the piles. With that said, I really appreciate all the support I've got so far. I do look at every single like, I look at every single comment, I notice every single subscriber, and I'm so appreciative of all the feedback I've had so far. Honestly, it means so much, and if you are finding that one tiny little detail in these readings resonates with you, then please let me know, because I would love to hear about your experience listening to this. And yeah, I just really hope you enjoy the reading, and thanks again for your ongoing support. Okay, collective, thank you for listening. I'll see you in your reading. Hi, Pile 1, welcome to your reading. This reading is all about the compliments that you receive behind your back. If you would like more information regarding what this reading will entail, please check out the introduction to the video. I will explain why I decided to do this reading. However, if you don't want to check out the intro, if you're just here to say, Nosy Witch, come on, just get on with it, we're here for the reading, that is absolutely fine. We are about to get started. We are going to be looking at 4 oracle cards in this portion of the reading, and then we are going to move on to the tarot portion a little bit later. If even one tiny little detail from this reading resonates with you, please let me know. I would love feedback from you. And thank you all so much for the support you've given me so far. It means the absolute world to me, and I do notice every single like, every single comment, and every single new subscriber. I really do appreciate it, and I thank you so much for your support so far. Anyway, without hesitation, let's get into your reading. So if you chose this clear crystal tower and you chose pile 1, this will be your reading. So let's have a look at what we've got. Okay, pile 1, we have subtlety, we have burn, we have confidence, it comes with time and practice, and we have cleansing, lemon. Let me just double check that all the cards are in frame. So the first thing that I'm noticing on the cards are the numbers. Obviously this one right here doesn't have a number, but we have number 22 over here, number 23 over here, and number 25 over here. And obviously these are from all different oracle decks. So it's just interesting that, they are all around the same number. This makes me think that maybe these ages are significant to you in some way. You could be around this age. You don't have to be, but if you are, this is just extra confirmation for you. If you have reached any of these ages, it could be that the things that I'm going to talk about in this reading going forward are things that felt significant for you at these ages. If you have not reached these ages, it could be that a lot of the things that people start admiring about you occur at these ages or something like that. But again, age does not have to be significant. It's just something that I kind of noticed immediately as I was looking at the cards. Okay, so I'm being called firstly to look at this burn card. And the thing that I'm thinking of when looking at this card is the Usher song Burn, because I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. So how could I not? That song was, a significant part of our childhoods if you grew up around that time as well, or if you just know of the song and you like the song. For some reason, I'm getting an image in my head, and let me know if this applies to you. But pile one, have you ever done that thing as a kid where you like record yourself singing to see if you can sing, and then you find out that you very much can't sing? I just got the image of somebody, singing that song. I mean, maybe that's because that was something that I used to do when I was a child. Before I even knew what a relationship was or what any of these lyrics were even about, I would belt that song out. And I cannot sing at all, is the thing as well. So, if you can relate to that, if that's something you used to do when you were growing up, that is just something that popped into my head. That could just be because of my own experience. So please ignore that if it doesn't apply. You might be able to sing very well, like, who knows? But that is just something that I thought of, that I found funny and I wanted to share. Maybe it's that you actually have a good singing voice and people want to compliment you on that. Maybe when you have just been messing around, like singing in the car with your friends or something like that, maybe you have all kind of been joking around and you've been doing silly voices while singing. Maybe actually somebody likes your silly voice, or maybe they think, wow, Pal One is actually a really good singer. But maybe they haven't told you that because they think that you might be like, well, what do you mean? We're just messing around. Like, I'm not taking it that seriously. And maybe they've just been a bit reluctant to say something, but maybe that is it. Maybe you have like an actually good singing voice, even when you're just kind of like being goofy and messing around. Also, I know that one of the lyrics in the song is something about how the protagonist knows the relationship is over, but they don't want their partner to move on with somebody else. It's difficult to see their ex-partner with somebody else or something like that. I can't remember the exact lyric, but I know that that is mentioned in the song. So it could be that you are somebody who ex-partners or people who you have had relationships or situationships with think you are very, very difficult to let go of. And I don't know whether this can be considered an official compliment, because at the end of the day, if you did have to let go of these people and they messed up with you and they're regretting it, then that's on them. But either way, you are somebody who very much burns. That's what I'm getting, burns in that person's brain. You burn in their mind sort of forevermore, as dramatic as that sounds. And they, really regret letting you go. That's what I'm getting. So I guess the reason you could take it as a compliment is maybe this is something you didn't know. Maybe you had a sneaking suspicion that that might be how some people from your past feel, but you didn't know and they would never tell you that. Maybe from the outside, you're looking at the people from your past and you don't think they regret anything, even if they treated you wrong in the past. Maybe you're thinking, well, they've moved on with this new person and I moved on, but really they haven't. Like they're still burning a candle for you with this burn card, or you don't necessarily know it, but people think about you for a long time after their experience with you has ended. And it could be people don't want to compliment you because they're feeling quite resentful. Like if it's an ex-partner or something, they could in your face sort of act like they're happy for you if you've moved on with a different partner, and then they see you and they're sort of full of regret and jealousy, so they don't compliment you on like how good you look because that is a source of pain for them. But really they're thinking, wow, Pal One is looking amazing, like why did I let Pal One go? What was I thinking? Or something like that. But again, they don't want to give you that compliment about how good you look, about how much they regret things. So they just keep it to themselves, like you don't know. And maybe you think that they've moved on, but they really haven't. Like they are still thinking about how good you look and sort of admiring you from a distance. But at the same time, sometimes feeling like a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of resentment. Like with this cleansing card as well, with it being lemon, it makes me think of a little bit of bitterness. So maybe the people who you have had to let go of, it doesn't even have to be romantic interests, it could be friends, maybe just people you have had to cut off in the past, because I do get the sense now you might have quite good boundaries with people, and if people mistreat you or they disrespect you in some way, I do get the sense that you are somebody who you won't now tolerate that, and that could be something that you've had to work on over a long period of time. It might not be something that's always come naturally to you, but it's something you very much do now. But unfortunately, there might be a little bit of bitterness surrounding the people who have lost you. It really does feel as though they have lost out on something. So, in a way, like that's a compliment to you, because they see you, they're putting you on this pedestal, like they see you as everything. And they really feel like they lost something when you had to let them go, or they let you go, or something like that. But in a way, it's kind of like, well, you snooze, you lose. Like, they lost out on you, and that's on them. Like, you're not going to put up with any bullshit. So, yeah, if they do feel that way, that is completely on them. I'm also getting that people might want to compliment you on your ability to deliver a good burn. I know that sounds really strange, but because I get the sense that you're not somebody who would, necessarily tolerate nonsense from people and people sort of disrespecting you, I feel like with this burn card, it makes me feel as though, like, if somebody approached you with some kind of attitude, you would shut them down with like a really good burn. Maybe you're the kind of person whose banter people really admire. Maybe people want to compliment you on the basis that you are somebody who, can sort of fight back and stick up for yourself, can deliver a good burn when it's needed. But with this subtlety card, it's like this is done in a very subtle way. So if you get the sense that somebody is being, petty with you and they're disrespecting you, you can give back as much as you take, but even worse, like you can cut right to the bone, but it's done in this subtle way where like other people around you are picking up on this and they kind of respect you for it. Maybe they're a little bit intimidated by that fieriness. Could be that fire sign energy is significant for you. Aries, Leo, or Sag, it doesn't have to be, but that could be significant. You could have prominent fire sign energy in your chart, or like air sign energy as well. So that's Libra, Gemini, Aquarius, because with the burn card, like air sign makes me think of communication and like sort of mental clarity. So I find that those with air sign at prominent placements in their chart are really good at thinking quickly, being quite quick-witted. People could think you are very quick-witted and maybe they don't always express this. People could think that your comebacks are on point or something like that. Because you have the mental cognition of like the air sign energy, you can deliver a really intellectual comeback, but it's also done maybe in this fiery way of like fire sign energy, like you are assertive, you are like straight to the point with it. But it could be subtle in the sense that like the person who this is directed at, they don't necessarily know what to do with it. They don't really realize that they're being put in their place until they think about it later, and they're like, wow, like pile one really got me there, like what was I thinking going up against pile one or something like that. People could really respect your banter, like your ability to give a comeback, to give a burn or something. I'm not saying that you go around like insulting people unnecessarily. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think when somebody does need to be put in their place, you are good at firing back. Like you don't even have to think about it. And people really admire this. They might be a little bit scared of it, but it is something that they really admire about you and don't necessarily say. And just thinking of like the sense of lightness that candles can create, like, they can light up a room. It could be that people think of you as somebody who can light up a room, or they might think of you as somebody who can command a lot of attention without necessarily trying. Maybe you can sort of be in this sun or like Leo energy without necessarily trying. People just sort of gravitate towards you. And that's something that people might really admire from afar. It could also mean that you are like a slow burn kind of person. Maybe the compliments that people give about you are that you are this source of like unexpected warmth. So if you do struggle with a bit of resting bitch face or something like that, or like you do come across as a bit more intimidating at first, It could be that you are not what people expected, like you're a slow burn in the sense that maybe when people first meet you, if they are like a little bit intimidated by you, maybe they think like, oh, like I'm a bit scared of opening up to this person, like they might not be somebody who I would click with. But then the more they get to know you, the more that they realize that you have this really warmth, light side, and not everything that they see on the surface is the real you. It could be like the more they get to know you, the more they like you because more of the real you is coming out or something like that. If you've ever had a comment like, oh, I thought you were going to be a bitch when I first met you, but actually you're really nice, it's kind of that energy, like you could be that kind of person. And it could just be something as simple as you being quite physically attractive or just having a resting bitch face. And maybe that's something like you don't necessarily always have control of. Maybe like your feelings are sometimes written on your face or something like that, or you're quite expressive and people think of you as one way, or, you know, because they are quite intimidated by you physically, they might be like, oh, pal one, like I bet they're going to be really shallow because they're really pretty or really handsome, and I bet they're just not going to be like down to earth. And it's like the more they find out about you, the more they realize their initial perception wasn't true, and actually you are this like lovely, warm, down to earth and sunny person, or at least you can be for the right people. So it's like this slow burn energy. The more people find out about you, the more they like, the more they want to stay around you and kind of bask in your warmth. And just talking about like physical attractiveness and what we said earlier about bitterness, it could be a sort of bitterness from an ex romantic interest of some kind that they can't have you anymore, but it could just be bitterness like in terms of jealous people, and maybe jealous people not wanting to give you a compliment, even though like you walk in a room and they think, oh my gosh, pile one is so attractive, all eyes are on pile one, like they are beautiful, handsome, they are stunning, they look really good. But it's like they don't want to give you that compliment because they feel as though you already know that, like you already know that you're hot or something like that. Oh, yeah, like hot is the word as well with the burn card and the candle. Like people are like, I'm not going to tell pile one that they're hot because they know it. And I don't really think you do necessarily think of yourself that way, or at least not all the time. Like, I don't think anybody does. If you know you're hot, then, you know, good for you. I think everybody should feel that way and, you know, have confidence. But even if you do think you're hot, I think you are very well aware that being hot or attractive doesn't make you better than anyone else. Like, I think you are still quite a down to earth person, regardless of knowing that you are attractive. But people maybe sometimes think that you're going to be stuck up, or you're going to be quite shallow, or you're going to think that you're better than them or something. And this all just comes from their internal insecurity. But it's maybe the reason why people, maybe you feel like, oh, like I'm always giving my friends or like people around me compliments and I don't really get those compliments back. Like I'm always telling people I love their outfit or I love their style or they look really good. And I feel like I don't get that back very much. Like, am I just unattractive or something? And the answer is no, like, you're definitely not. I think it's just that people assume that you get those compliments all the time because you are, like, very objectively attractive. And they just think that you already know that and that they don't need to tell you. And the wrong people, it sometimes makes them a little bit bitter because they maybe don't like the attention being taken off them or something like that. So yeah, they're like a bit of a bitter lemon about it and they're not willing to really give you that compliment, even though they're thinking like you're the best looking person in this room or something like that. It could be that in the past, this has maybe made you a little bit, like people's reactions to you has maybe made you a little bit intimidated or a little bit, have I got something on my face or something like that? Because you might get a lot of people who you approach socially that kind of look you up and down. And you know, when you maybe look people up and down, it's to be nice or to give them a compliment or something, but you get people acting a bit bizarrely towards you, like they look you up and down and then don't really say anything. And you're thinking, like, oh, have I got my dress or my pants on backwards or something? Like, what is going on? But it's just that a lot of people stare at you, think you're attractive, and then don't say anything because they think that you already know it. That's more what it's about. With this subtlety card as well, I feel like people really admire your ability to be subtle about things and to not be too dramatic about things that don't necessarily require that level of drama. And I know that sounds weird because I'm thinking of like a very specific example here, but I know it sounds weird when I say like not dramatic because obviously I'm talking about like fire signs and Leo, and I know that Leo is often associated with that, but it's kind of like this element of duality because you can be very expressive and like in your fire or like Leo energy when you need to be. But I get the sense that people really admire you because you know how to talk to people and you know how to deal with delicate situations without making it into a big drama. I think that's what it is. One very specific example that is coming to my mind, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but if you work in like some kind of customer service environment or dealing with the general public, one example that I was thinking of is like when you walk into a doctor's surgery, and I used to work at a doctor's as well. I know in the UK we have to ask for a reason. The doctors ask like admin and reception staff to ask for a brief reason why the person is making an appointment. So I get the image of somebody walking into the doctor's and trying to be like subtle when the receptionist asks them what's wrong, if it's something personal. By the way, I did always give people the option. Like I said, if you don't want to tell me, I can just put personal, but the doctor asks. Like, that is why I am asking you. I am not asking you for my own sake. But it just makes me think of, somebody sort of wanting to not declare to the entire room the reason why they're coming to the doctors. And maybe they whisper something to the receptionist, like, I think I've got chlamydia or something like that. And then it makes me think of like somebody who has not got any subtlety. So let's say the receptionist in this instance shouts out to the entire waiting room, chlamydia? Well, we don't deal with that here. So like everyone can hear or something like that. So whatever that example is, whatever the person in that example is, you are essentially the opposite of that. Like if a customer came to you and they had a sort of delicate thing that they wanted to talk about, let's say that patient came to you and they said, I think I have chlamydia, like, what should I do? You won't be like up in arms dramatic about it. You deal with it very well, very subtly, and with a sense of empathy. So you'd be like, okay, no worries, like, come into the back. We'll have a private conversation because I can tell this is something you want a private conversation about. I will give you this resource to go to this place. It's not something we do here, but we have this resource and this resource, something like that, something that's dealt with in like a more delicate way, and you're not making it a massive thing. You're not giving any like judgment to that person. That's the thing, like you don't deal with people in a judgmental way. It's like, well, this is your situation, here's what we're going to do, this is the resources I can offer you. It's this element of like not being over dramatic about things that don't require that level of drama. So you're not the type of person to bring up other people's drama in front of other people who don't need to know. So for example, let's say if like your friend is in a difficult financial situation and you are very well aware of this, it could be that you are the type of person to always deal with that very sensitively and very subtly. Whereas like some people, if you tell them personal things about your life, they kind of don't always have the foresight. I'm not saying that it's always done with a malicious intent, but sometimes they just don't have the foresight to like think that if they brought that up in front of other people, that it would embarrass you. So maybe you tell one friend about like your difficult financial circumstance and they're talking about it with other friends, or they just say flat out like, oh, well, I thought you didn't have any money at the moment, like in front of other people. And you are not the type to do that, essentially. And this is something that people really admire about you. You deal with things subtly and sensitively. You won't bring up other people's personal lives in front of people who don't need to know about it. And with this confidence card as well, it does feel like you have this real inner confidence that kind of glows, that kind of radiates from within you. And maybe you didn't always feel this way, or maybe you still now don't feel overly confident, but people really recognize your confidence. Even if you are not somebody who is really extroverted and out there, people look at you and they think that your confidence is such an asset. Maybe it's your confidence in terms of communication, like maybe in a work setting, even if it's a situation that you've not been in before or something like that, it's like you deal with it very confidently and you know the right things to say, and people really admire that. And I keep being called back to this burn card as well. I know I've already said like quite a lot about that, but it does make me think that you are maybe somebody who like burns the candle at both ends or something. Like people really admire your enthusiasm towards going after what you want, your level of motivation. Perhaps people see you as somebody who is really successful. It doesn't necessarily have to be in like a financial way, but whatever position you're in your life, people just see you as a real go-getter. They see you as a successful person, a person who has a lot of confidence and could really go after what they wanted to achieve in life. People don't see you as somebody who would ever be stuck in the same place, like in a stagnant energy. If you didn't want to be somewhere, people really admire the fact that you will go after what you want. And this isn't likely to be something that a lot of people have told you, but with this confidence card, it makes me think that you also inspire other people to be confident, the people close to you in your life. You inspire them to be confident and to be more of themselves. If your confidence has taken you a long time to build up, because I'm just noticing that it says it comes with time and practice, just going back to that, it makes me feel as though people really admire your commitment to developing your self confidence. People could have seen you in the past when you were perhaps a bit more insecure, and people could really admire how much you have grown in confidence. People who struggle with their own insecurities could really admire your confidence, or they could see you as somebody who doesn't necessarily struggle with those insecurities. Even if you have in the past, they could just interpret you as like this quietly confident person who maybe doesn't deal with those issues. But if you are open about the fact that you have dealt with some insecurities or issues before, it's like people admire the fact that you can talk about that so openly, and it also inspires them. Like, let's say that you've had body image issues or something like that, and maybe you have dealt with not being the standard of beauty when you were at a certain size, whether that be like larger or smaller. Maybe you have dealt with some insecurities over that, but maybe you have now got. So maybe there was a time in the past when you used to sort of like not wear what you wanted and things like that because you were scared of showing your body and you were scared that you didn't fit into this very specific mold. So maybe you were quite reluctant to like dress in the ways that you actually wanted to. You were reluctant to like be yourself in that way, but maybe you have got to the stage where that is no longer an issue for you because you have developed in confidence, and because you are this energy of like being a go-getter and doing what you want. I feel like maybe you have really committed and motivated yourself to try and grow in this confident energy, and therefore now like you wear what you want and you feel good and you look good, and maybe like this is something other people are admiring but they're not saying anything about it because they just assume that like you've always been that way and maybe like you haven't had to work for it. But maybe you also inspire others in the sense that maybe they deal with those insecurities that you once did, and they're thinking, well, pal one wears this and they look amazing, so that's inspiring me to be more comfortable expressing myself how I'd like, or something like that. A really, really beautiful energy and an inspiring energy, to be quite honest. I also feel as though because you now have your own inner sense of confidence, you are not afraid to give other people a compliment and to really shower them in light and love. And this is something that people really admire about you with this cleansing card. It could be that you feel like a more pure friendship or relationship than what people have had with other humans in the past. Like, it could be that, you are a person's first version of friendship or of interaction that feels more like innocent and feels more genuine, feels more pure to some degree. I don't know how to explain that, but I'm just getting the sense of like, somebody meeting you and you just being really welcoming and warm and giving them compliments and not being afraid to do that. And they're thinking of it like, oh my gosh, my first friendship where it's not this jealousy, it's not this rivalry, it's just this person who's very confident in themselves and they want to shower me with this love as well, the same love that they have for themselves. And it just feels very pure and like very authentic, like just an authentic friendship when, perhaps these people weren't used to that in the past. You come with this sort of pure and magical energy. It could also be, and I know this is going to sound really weird, but it could be that you look very clean. Like, people want to give you compliments on the basis that you look or smell clean or something like that. Like, maybe you are somebody who you just always smell good, or people want to compliment you on how you smell or the perfume that you wear or aftershave or something like that. It could also be that you have a beautiful or very clean home. Maybe your home is spotless, or you really take a lot lot of pride in your home and your surroundings. And maybe, again, like people want to compliment you on that, but maybe sometimes people don't because they're like a little bit jealous. Maybe they can't keep on top of their home. Honestly, like pile one, I am a little bit jealous, but I'd still give you a compliment if your home looked nice. But yeah, maybe it's something like that, something to do with you spending a lot of time on your surroundings or on yourself, looking good, smelling good, or your space looking good. These are the compliments that people give you behind your back. Like people might say to other people, like, have you been to Pal One's home? It looks amazing. Or, oh my gosh, like Pal One, did you see their makeup today? They look so fresh faced, they look so youthful. And like, that's what I think of with like, I don't know, like that clean girl aesthetic or whatever that means to you, like just doing a sort of more like glowy makeup look or like glowy foundation or something like that. It could be that you get a lot of compliments on your skin because of that, or I don't know, just something along those lines. You look very put together, you look very clean. This is something that people say about you, but they might not say to your face. Okay, so that is what I am getting with your oracle cards, pile one. We are just going to move along to the tarot portion of your reading now. I really hope you are enjoying this so far. So yeah, I'll see you in the tarot portion. Welcome back, pile one. We are going to move on to the tarot portion of your reading, so please bear with me and we'll have a look at what you got. Okay, pile one, we've got the Chariot. We've got Death. We've got the Five of Wands. We've got Sunrise. I actually think this Sunrise card is exclusive to this tarot deck, so that's interesting. We have the Star. We have the King of Pentacles. We have the Moon. And we have the Ten of Swords. Okay, pile one. Okay, so pile one, what were we saying with this Ten of Swords about the bitterness? I think, unfortunately, you are somebody who can make people feel very bitter, and that is why they don't necessarily always give you these compliments. Because I feel as though they are bitter because they've lost you to some degree, they've lost access to you. It doesn't have to be romantic relationships. Obviously, that's what I lean towards because that's where there's kind of, or there can be like a lot of strong feelings involved, but it could just be like friendships, people who have been in your life that you've had to end things with, you've had to cut off their access to you. You leave them bitter and you don't know it. Like, they don't say this to you, but they might say to other people. They might express some regret because essentially not having you as a part of their life has ruined their life, and maybe that's something that it's taken them a while to realize. And this isn't in any way to make you feel guilty for like having to end things, having to cut things off with certain people. If they were toxic and you had to do that, like, you made the best decision for yourself, and I am all for you asserting your boundaries and sticking up for yourself. It's not telling you not to stick to that. It's just telling you that sometimes these people are very bitter. They will, reflect on that situation one day. And if you were ever doubting this as well, like if you are ever thinking like, oh, well, such a body is fine without me, like I see them doing XYZ on social media, again, I know this isn't necessarily like a compliment, as in like a straightforward compliment, but to this person, it's like in their head, they are thinking of you as everything. They are seeing you as very abundant with this King of Pentacles. They're like putting you up on a pedestal. They are thinking that they had like safety and security with you, that you were, this Star as well. You were a very, very like healing person to be around, a very unique person, and they're not going to find you anywhere else. These are all things that they're thinking. They might be talking you up to their friends, like maybe people who don't know you or something like that, and they're saying, like, they're bragging about the fact that they were with you and that they even got access to you. Maybe they're saying like, oh, I was in a relationship, or I was friends with this really amazing pal one person at one point, and we used to do this together, and they were like this, and they were so attractive, and they were so this, and blah, blah, blah. But maybe they're not talking about the ways they lost you, what led to that, if that is the case. Or they could be talking about how they lost you with their close friends, and they could be saying like, oh, I can completely see how I effed this situation up. Like, I ruined anything good. that was going to come into my life because I messed up this situation with pile one and there's no going back now or something like that. But you might just see them like moving on with their life and not really thinking about you. But if you were like doubting that, this is saying that they are very much still thinking of you and they sort of have a bit of bitterness towards the situation of things ending. You do have a lot of major arcana as well, and the cards were shuffled very, very well. So I think that's significant in the sense that maybe you don't know how powerful of an impact you have on people's lives. Again, maybe this is something they don't tell you, but in particular with this death card, it's like you have a really transformative effect on people. People could feel as though, like, since they met you, their life has transformed in some way. They've almost had a rebirth. Maybe it's in terms of like the opinions you share with people. Maybe you've changed somebody's perspective and their worldview and it's kind of flipped their life around. Maybe you have literally changed people's lives in terms of like with the star energy and that being to do with healing. Maybe you have helped people like overcome a significant event in their life. Maybe you've helped people overcome their grief or overcome an addiction of some kind. And I'm not saying that that is your responsibility to do that, but maybe people feel as if you are that salvation. They feel as though you did these amazing things for them and you don't even know it. Like you just take what you did for granted. But with this death card, it's like you've had a huge impact on people's lives and you don't even necessarily know it. And it doesn't even have to be something absolutely major, or at least you don't have to see it as major. It's more that the other person does, and that is what they say about you, but it might be something you don't hear. So, like, it could even be something as simple as, like, you teaching your friend about having healthy boundaries in a relationship because you don't put up with bullshit like that. And it could be like your friend is in the dating world and you have like changed the game for them by teaching them these healthy boundaries, and they really appreciate you for that. They sort of inwardly thank you for that because they're like, oh my gosh, I used to put up with all these things with like in the dating world when I was exploring Tinder or Plenty of Fish or whatever the others are called. When I was on there, I used to put up with this, but now, like, thanks to Pile One, I no longer deal with that. Like, they have transformed my dating life because they've taught me how to have boundaries with people and how to stick up for myself or something like that. Or if it's not something deep like that, it could even be something more surface level, like you've transformed this person's life by teaching them about their sense of style or about makeup or something like that. They just feel as though you've really changed their life for the better with whatever you've taught them or how you've influenced them in some way. That is what I'm getting with that death card. And with this Five of Wands, I mean, this could be interpreted in a couple of ways. We'll go with the less toxic way at first. I'll talk about that. So it could be that people really admire your competitive spirit and people talk about you in the way that they'll be like, oh, like it's so fun to get Pile One riled up, like doing some kind of competition. Maybe you are somebody who, like, if you're having like a silly little work competition or something like that, like not very high stakes, maybe you get really into it and people really admire your ability to like motivate the team to go after this goal or something like that. It doesn't have to be, but that's what I'm thinking of. Like, again, with this Chariot, like you are very motivated, like people really admire your drive, your go-getting energy. Maybe you approach things with quite a lot of enthusiasm. That's what I'm getting with the Sunrise card as well. It's like the little bunny is running, like, and that's you, like, running after what you want. People really say how much they admire your ability to go after what you want, to be a go-getter, to be that motivated energy. So it could be something to do with that. Like, you can have a little fun rivalry with people that isn't taken too seriously. On the other hand, like on the more toxic side, it could be like going back to what we said in the oracle about you being able to deliver a good burn. It could be that people think you are good at having an answer to everything and you are good at delivering comebacks, and it makes them a bit scared about getting into a rivalry with you. Like, they don't want to get on the wrong side of you because they know that you could shut them down. It could also be that people see you as competition, maybe because you are quite physically attractive or something like that. It feels like there is this sense of rivalry. Maybe it's somebody who And I don't think you like feel this way about other people. I don't think you're looking at humans like that. It could be that there are a few toxic people in your life or just around you in your vicinity who you try not to have anything to do with, but maybe they see you as a rivalry because maybe they see themselves as like a good looking person, but unfortunately, maybe they put all their value on their ability to be attractive, and therefore, because you are also an attractive person, they think you also put all your value on that when you really, really don't. It's maybe not even something you think about that much, but they therefore see you as this competition when really on your side there isn't any because you're not even thinking of this person, but they're thinking of you. And it's almost like this resentment, but also a respect. Like they're like, oh, well, Pal one's on the same level as me looks wise, so therefore they are my competition, not realizing that, you have all these other things going for you and you're not even thinking about how you look, like you don't even need that validation in that sense. So it could just be something like a lot of people who, have that toxic mentality, think you are very good looking, but they don't want to tell you that because they want to keep you down. They are thinking that because maybe people have hyped them up quite a lot and it's made them like quite big headed. Maybe they think if they hype you up, you'll become more of a rival in some way because it'll make you big headed, even though you're not even thinking about them at all. I don't know why that's coming through quite strongly, but something like that. With this moon card, it's like you have a lot of hidden depth, and that's something that people talk about as well. Again, it goes back to that thing that we said in the oracle of like, maybe you're not what people expect. Like, they might say, oh, I didn't think Pal 1 would be XYZ when I first met them, but they really have a lot of hidden depth. They are not what I thought they'd be. Maybe they compliment you on the fact you are more emotional or more in touch with your emotions than what they originally thought you'd be, or something like that. Maybe because you do maybe come across as quite fiery, people assume like you're not in touch with your emotions in that way. But going back to what we said in the oracle about you being quite subtle and being able to speak to people with empathy and understanding, it could be that people are saying about you, like, oh, I didn't think, Pal 1 would understand where I was coming from with this, but actually they've been so understanding, they are very empathetic, and they've dealt with me with like this warmth with this sunrise card. And if you're somebody who, you often wonder why people gravitate towards you, it could be because of this King of Pentacles energy, because I'm getting that people often see you as like this very safe person. And it does go back to this sense of empathy and like with the moon, with the hidden emotions as well. It's like people really feel as though they can rely on you and they can trust you with their emotions and with discussing like more personal things, and that you are a safe person. Like they admire the fact that they can just tell you things and you will keep those things to yourself, like you won't create unnecessary drama about it. They really feel as though in your presence, they feel very secure, like they feel like they're being looked after by you. You could have a sort of mummy or daddy energy about you. They just feel very taken care of, even if this is not something that they necessarily express. It could be that, when you have guests over at your house, you really take care of them and you offer them like a lovely home cooked meal, or even just something as simple as always offering a brew, like a cup of tea or a coffee or something like that. People feel safe in your company and in your home. Or it could be like you are quite protective when you are out and about, and maybe you always make sure that people get home safe, like after a night out, like you make sure you walk people to the taxi rank or you walk them home, or you are that person who always sends a text to a friend saying like, are you home safe? And people really admire this about you, even though it's not something they necessarily say. It's like something they find really adorable, that you are really loving and caring, that protective energy. It could also be reliable in the sense of like your colleagues think you are a reliable worker, really think you are a worker who they can depend on. Like if they're having an issue, they can come to you and you will give advice. It could be friends, colleagues, it could be like your partner. They just see you as this very abundant, successful, and dependable person. And with success, I don't think it has to refer to like material success, like we said. It could just be that whatever stage in your life you're at, because you have so much inner confidence that radiates through, people do really see you as confident. People do really see you as abundant because they see you as like wanting for nothing, like you have everything because you are everything, that kind of thing. Okay, that is what I have got for you today, Pal One. I really hope you enjoyed this reading. If any tiny little detail did resonate with you, please let me know in the comments. Please like the video and please subscribe if possible. It would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hi, Pal 2. Welcome to your reading. If you chose this sage green crystal tower, and you chose pile 2, this will be your reading. This reading is all about the compliments that you receive behind your back, what people say about you behind your back, things they admire about you. We will go into all that. We will start off by looking at a couple of oracle cards to check the overall energy, and as usual, we will then move on to the tarot portion of your reading. If you would like more information regarding what this reading will entail, and why I have decided to do this reading, then please check out the introduction. But if you just want me to get started with the reading, I am about to do that. If any little tiny part of the reading does resonate with you, please let me know in the comments. Please give me a like, and if at all possible, please subscribe. I appreciate the support I've gotten so far so much. I can't thank you enough for your lovely comments. They really mean a lot to me. So again, I just wanted to thank you. But without any more hesitation, let's get started and have a look at the cards we've pulled for you. Okay, pile 2. So we have a line. We have a liminal space. We have Clover, release your guilt. And we have Vitality, Fig. Let me just check that all the cards are in frame. Please bear with me, pal 2. Okay, I've moved them over a bit just so that we can see all the cards a little bit more clearly. Okay, pal 2. So firstly, with this Align card, I am getting the sense that something people say about you behind your back, a thing that they compliment you on, is your ability to align with people from all different walks of life, your ability to connect with a variety of people, to communicate effectively with a variety of people. It could be that people compliment your ability to be very adaptable in social situations. Maybe this is something you don't necessarily feel on the inside. But a lot of the people you surround yourself with, whether they be, romantic partners, friends, they really admire your ability to just like talk to anyone. They look at you and they're like, oh my gosh, like they just deal with any situation so well, whether it's like high pressure, whether it's dealing with somebody, volatile, your like person who you're with. They look at you and they see you dealing with those kinds of things and they're like, oh my goodness, I could never deal with that the way that pile 2 has so effectively. It could be like your ability to diffuse situations of some kind. If somebody sort of approaches you in a way where they're like aggressive or something like that, you could find this sort of magical ability to be able to like tame that situation and calm them down. And the person you're with is thinking, wow, like I had no idea how they just did that. This person was so like highly strung and now pal 2 has like tamed them. People could really compliment you on your ability to see things from multiple perspectives as well. With liminal space, it kind of talks about the space in between, and I sense that you are somebody who is very fair and balanced in your perspectives, and you don't feel ashamed of occupying that space in between and not seeing everything in black and white. You try to meet people in the middle and you try to understand where people are coming from, even if their views don't always necessarily align with yours. It's like you try to meet them halfway. You understand that people have different life experience. You understand that your life experience isn't going to be exactly the same as somebody else's, and therefore people come to different conclusions on certain topics, and you understand that duality. You could have Gemini or you could have Libra placements in your chart. You don't have to, but just when I think of communicating effectively, I often think of Gemini. I feel like Gemini also has that duality. And often people can refer to this as like two-faced or fake, but I think it's just the ability to see things from multiple perspectives. And same for Libra, like Libra can be very fair and balanced. They can see things from all different sides. They believe in justice, they believe in everyone having a fair opportunity. And I feel like that is the energy you bring to the table, and it's something that people really admire about the way you approach the world and interact with people. It could be that people really admire your ability to, let's say, go to some really posh banquet and mingle with like middle or upper class people or celebrities or something like that. But then equally, you could be at a homeless shelter and you find a way to connect with people there as well. It's sort of two opposite ends of the spectrum, but no matter what, you find yourself in a position where you're able to connect with people from all walks of life, even if you don't have exactly the same experience with them. And people really admire this about you. Your ability to see where other people are coming from, even if you don't agree with every single thing that they've said. And it's like the people who you interact with, they appreciate the value that you bring to the discussion. People admire the fact you never really seem out of place, even if you might feel that way on the inside. People don't see you that way. They always feel like you just fit in with anyone and everyone. You have that amazing ability to adapt to situations, and this is something people really talk about. It could be that your partner says to like their friends or the people in their life, yeah, like Pal 2 just deals with these social situations so well. I love having them around me because they can just deal with XYZ. If this kind of person came to talk to us, they know how to handle it, something like that. And I'm not saying that you necessarily enjoy socializing. You might do, but you could very well be like introverted. It's just that when you do socialize, when you do engage with people, they feel very understood by you. They feel like you can listen to their perspective and offer a balanced perspective back. They feel like you can meet them halfway. And it's just like you can deal with it very well. And maybe the people around you really notice this and they haven't necessarily said anything about it, but they just really think your ability to do that is a massive gift and something they feel they should really compliment you on more. With a line as well, it's kind of reminding me of like a community. So if you are in touch with a community of some kind, whether it just be like in your local area or whether you know you have an established community online or something like that, it's your ability to be relatable that people really want to compliment you on. It's like you explain things in such a way where the reaction is like, oh my God, yes, like I've been there, I've gone through that too. My experience in some way aligns with yours, and people just really want to compliment you on that basis of delivering a message in a very authentic and relatable way. Something about that. It could just be that, like, in the past, you have done like story time videos on YouTube or something like that, or when you've been discussing an issue, it's like people are really listening to you and nodding their heads, and they're like, oh my gosh, I agree so much with what Pile 2's saying. This is something that I've thought myself, but I haven't been able to express. People really want to compliment you on your ability to articulate a message. It's something that people might say behind your back. They might communicate with somebody and they might be like, oh, do you know what? Like, this is what I'm trying to say, but Pal 2, can you step in and help me communicate this message? Because this is what I'm trying to explain. And you kind of translate it for that person to get their message across. They're like, yeah, like, this is what they mean, blah, blah, blah. And the other person understands it and they're like, oh, yeah, like, that's what you meant. And like, I don't know, you have this amazing ability to like translate things like that in a relatable way, a way that makes sense to all parties involved. Or it could be that, you know, people literally ask for your advice. Because of this ability, people really think you give good advice because you have understanding of all different kinds of situations or something like that. And with talking about, you know, this liminal space and being in the area in between and like, you know, not thinking of things in black and white, I understand that, you know, in society there are a lot of topics that are controversial and that do raise a lot of issues. There are a lot of strong emotions attached to certain topics. And I'm not going to tell someone how to react if they are a person who is affected as an individual by some of the topics raised in terms of like politics and laws and things like that. But what I do want to say is that black and white thinking can sometimes work to our detriment. And I feel like a lot of people, unfortunately, do engage into much black and white thinking. And I think you're not one of those people. You are about finding the middle ground. maybe between people with polarizing opinions. You could be somebody who manages to like bring those people together in some way. You acknowledge both sides, or like if you have a strong opinion, let's say you are advocating for something, you deliver the message in a way that's like, oh, so you think this, and I understand why you would think this based on your experience, but, and you correct them, but it's in like a very respectful way. That's what I'm getting, because sometimes when people, do feel quite strongly about a topic, especially on the internet, I feel like this happens because sometimes you can't always interpret the way people are like asking a question or something. And it could be that somebody is like uneducated on a particular topic and they're genuinely asking a question and wanting to learn more. But maybe like due to a difference in the way that their brain functions and them not having the exact same experience as someone else, maybe their question is like interpreted as sarcastic and it kind of receives a very sarcastic response back. And instead of that person having the ability to learn and grow from what they've said, they just get a lot of sort of vitriol on the internet and people sort of shutting them down and not really allowing them to learn. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily anyone's job to educate someone about a controversial issue if they are spouting nonsense about an issue. I'm not saying that it's anyone's job to come in and educate them. I think we should all be learning and educating ourselves on certain issues. I think that has to come from us. We have to be willing, we have to make the effort. We can't rely on other people to do that for us. So I'm not necessarily saying that, but I just think that you are somebody who is very much admired for your ability to explain things in an articulate way without sounding condescending, because I think that's the thing, like sometimes I think people forget that we all have to start out somewhere. And yes, people do have to take responsibility for their own actions and their own words. And I'm not saying that just because somebody grew up in like a certain environment where a certain behavior was tolerated, if that behavior is harmful, I'm not saying that that gives them an excuse. Like people should always learn and grow, and it's their responsibility to do that. However, I think some people do forget that we all started out somewhere, and one person might have grown up in an environment where the people around them were very clued on to what is harmful and what is not harmful, and they brought that person up to be understanding of that. And another person could have been brought up in a more abusive environment where harmful behaviors is all that they learn. So it's like that person who maybe grew up in the more harmful environment with toxic behaviors around them, they're going to be behind compared to that other person. They aren't going to be able to learn those things at the same rate as that other person. And it's not an excuse because, again, they have to actively learn to be different and to not engage with those toxic behaviors. But change doesn't happen overnight. It can't all happen overnight. And I think some people forget that, like, there was a time when maybe they engaged in toxic behaviors, but because they learned a different way of being, because they bettered themselves, they forget that there was a time that they were ever like that. And when people approach them, genuinely wanting to learn and genuinely wanting to change their perspective, sometimes I feel like it gets shut down with a bit of a condescending or like a patronizing attitude. And I think the thing that people really love and admire about you, the things that they say about you, is that you approach everyone with respect. And if somebody is genuinely trying to learn and to better themselves, you can be quite gentle with them. You can give them gentle encouragement. You can meet them part way. You're like, yeah, I do understand your perspective, but this, and this. You genuinely try to educate them. You don't just shut them down for the sake of one-upmanship or trying to present yourself as better than them. You recognize that everybody is at different stages of their journey and learning about certain topics, and that we all learn at a different rate and we all have a different life experience. You are very much acknowledging that, and people really appreciate that about you because they feel like they can come to you and they can say like, oh, I'm learning about XYZ topic, like I'm reading this book, but I don't really get like, what do they mean by this? And instead of, being approached through the lens of like, well, don't be an idiot, it's because this and this, you really listen to them, you are respectful of their thoughts, and you gently educate. You don't sort of shoehorn your opinion in there to prove what a better person you are for knowing this information. And don't get me wrong, like I'm glad in a way for the internet, this access to resources. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the internet. Like, I wouldn't be delivering this message now. I am very grateful in the sense that, people do now have these platforms for bringing light to certain issues and for advocacy. But I do think that sometimes the message is delivered in a way that actively harms the cause because it's delivered in a way that is too black and white and there is no room for nuance. That is the thing. People admire you because you are a very nuanced individual. I think often this black and white thinking can come from a place of ego and a place of somebody wanting to prove to themselves and other people that they are the better or more moral person rather than actively wanting to do the work and advocate for the communities they're claiming to advocate for. I don't want to go into like a massive rant about this, but if I say performative activism, you might know what I mean and you might think of somebody when I say that phrase. I am very glad that people do speak out about issues that are important and do very much need to be talked about, but I think it can go too much in one direction. And the way that actively harms the cause is it puts people off engaging with that content entirely. And yes, you can sit back and say, well, if that person doesn't want to learn, that just says that they're a bad person. And, it's not my job to educate them. And yes, whilst that's true, that message still doesn't have to be delivered in a way that's snarky and that puts down the other person because ultimately that might make that person think, well, if this is what people in this community are like, then I don't want anything to do with it. Like, this is unhinged and I'm stepping away from this community. If there's no room for nuance. And ultimately, that does discourage people from advocating in terms of like the level that they're up to, the level that they're able to advocate. So that does harm the cause inevitably. And again, you are very much someone who's good at meeting people part way, and people really respect that. It's like that people aren't perfect, that you aren't perfect, but you still have a lot to offer. You know that other people have a lot to offer. You can see lots of different sides of a situation. I just think we have really got off track with activism in terms of it becoming this thing about moral righteousness, about ego, and about showmanship, rather than actively helping the communities affected by certain issues and doing the work. And social media can be pretty toxic for this. I personally know people in my life who have in the past talked about big issues such as racism, and I can tell that they are essentially engaging with it for the likes, which I just find absolutely disgusting. Like, obviously, there's nothing wrong if you have a social media presence. There's nothing wrong with showing your support, with advocating in some way. But the types of people that I mean. There were certain people that I encountered where they would put something on their Instagram story and it just came across as like, look at me, look at what a good person I am. And then they'd say something like, if you are not actively posting about this issue on your Instagram story, I am deleting you because I don't want to be associated with racists or something like that. And it just got absolutely ridiculous because, yes, I understand why you wouldn't want to be associated with racists, but their lack of posting on a social media platform or an Instagram story does not indicate whether you are racist or not. Some people just don't go on Instagram that much and they just don't post about anything because they don't have a platform. Like, there's no benefit to doing that other than stroking their own ego. Certain people could feel as though they don't know enough about an issue, they aren't educated enough about it in order to form an opinion and in order to post it publicly online, but they could very much be doing the work behind the scenes. They could be educating themselves and you would never know because in these people's opinions, it's all about what you put on your Instagram story, which to me is just so bizarre and irrelevant. It could be that a person does not post on social media, but they are attending protests, they are advocating in their personal life, they are doing the work in that sense, but you would never know it. But jumping to the conclusion of like, if you don't do XYZ in this exact way, then it means you are XYZ. It's just ridiculous, in my opinion. It just creates this polarization, it creates this unnecessary divide, and it actively harms the communities that we are trying to help, essentially. So if you are listening to this and you know the type of person that I mean, then I just want you to feel reassured that people see you as like very much the opposite of this person. People see you as somebody who really deserves to be listened to because you have that nuance, you have that sense of perspective of seeing things from different sides. And that's not to say that you can't disagree with somebody. It's just that you can tell them that they're wrong and you can explain why they're wrong instead of just jumping to calling them an idiot or something like that. And people are appreciative of the fact that you do that because maybe somebody doesn't have the emotional capacity to do that work themselves. Maybe it would be too draining for them. So, them seeing you doing that work is something that they really want to compliment you on, but maybe don't because maybe they think that that would sound weird or something like that, but it's just something they are really grateful for and something they really like about you. So another example of something that, creates quite a divide and quite polarizing opinions, I feel like it's a bit of a controversial topic, is, I'm just going to say it, like veganism. So I have personal experience with this because I actually try to be plant-based myself. And the reason I say try to be is because I understand that my best effort is going to look different to someone else's best effort, and that is absolutely okay. I think people are way too black and white on this issue. So I'm not going to preach about it. I don't want to go on a massive rant about the whys, but I will just say that for me, it is a more ethical thing and it felt right for me because I'm an animal lover and I do what feels right for me. However, I am never going to tell someone that what they're doing isn't enough because I realize that everyone's circumstance is completely different. And if you are somebody who you're trying to be plant based, your experience could be very different to mine. You could have certain dietary or medical restrictions that make it harder for you. You could have medical reasons why you can't go and jump into like a full vegan diet or something like that. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that somebody who is a middle class person with a high paying job, living on their own, only having to buy food for themselves, they might have one experience of that plant based diet and things might be more accessible to them than, let's say, a single mother of 5 who is on food stamps and has a child with sensory issues and who can't eat certain foods or something like that. Both of those people could be trying their best, but they could both have very different results in something they are pursuing. So it's about understanding that not everyone can be perfect and that that's okay. You can meet people where they're at. Like, you don't expect people to be perfect, and I think that's something people really admire about you. It could also be that people really think you have a great ability to deal well with the in between stages of life. It could be that, like, when you meet up with a friend after a long period of time and they're like, okay, so what's been going on with you? You're like, well, me and my partner of 10 years have broken up. I lost my job. I moved out. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of this. Like, you didn't talk about it or you didn't make a big deal out of it. And you don't. It's like you just get on with it. You're able to adapt quite well to changes in circumstance, even though you might have been dealing with like the worst time in your life emotionally. You could have gone through like a lot of hardship, a lot of turmoil, but it's like you've dealt with it and you've moved on to this next stage. You're like, yeah, that happened, but I'm in this moment now and it's something completely different. But whatever has happened to change the situation, you've dealt with it incredibly well, and people really respect and admire you for this, even if they don't say it. They're thinking, oh my gosh, I could never handle this the way Pal 2 has. They've handled it so well. I don't know how they've done it. They've got out of this bad situation and, somehow they're in this place. It's like you see the bright side of things, you see the funny side of things. Even if you've gone through the worst moment of your life and you've like lost your job, you're good at dealing with those in between phases. You're good at not letting it get you down and you're good at moving on. With this Clover card, it could be that, maybe in the past you have actually felt a little bit of guilt over being this person who sees things from multiple sides. Maybe you have felt like pressure in the past to pick a side or something like that, or there has been some reason that you felt othered. Oh, actually, like something that I'm getting with this align card as well, another thing that's kind of coming through is that you could have felt othered and yeah, like you could have had pressure to align to something. So let's say that, I don't know, I feel like I always use this example, but it's just because it's quite a personal one for me. So let's say that you are like bisexual or you're pansexual. You could have had pressure from people to like pick a side, and you could have almost felt guilty, like in terms of your family or something like that. You could have dealt with a lot of black and white thinkers or a lot of quite judgmental people who tried to put pressure on you, like in terms of a family party or something like that. Let's say one day you brought a man home, and then the next family party you brought a woman home or something like that, and people could have really dealt with this in a bit of a negative way and given you some criticism for it and said sort of narrow minded things like, why can't you just pick a side? Why can't you just align? And there could have been like a little bit of internalized guilt over this situation. But it's like people really admire the fact that you have grown from that and you have managed to release whatever guilt was attached to that situation. Like people could have really seen your growth and the way with this vitality, it's like you are glowing now and you are very much in your power. So even if that's, some kind of internalized guilt that you've dealt with in the past, that has been released, you feel like a more free spirit than what you did previously. You feel like you can express yourself in a way that makes sense to you, and you're not going to let other people's judgments and the shame that they try to put on you, you're not going to let that get you down. It could also be that you encourage people to step into their own power and to not feel guilty over things that, like that are very much out of their control. It could also be that you make people feel very good about not being perfect within themselves. Like maybe you could even be somebody in the past who you had like certain toxic behaviors. This doesn't have to apply, but if it does, it could be that you had toxic behaviors in the past that you at a certain point had a lot of guilt towards, but you forgive yourself now for not being that perfect person, or you are learning to forgive yourself for engaging with those behaviors and moving on and being a better version of you than what you once were. That people really respect your growth, your change, and your release of any of that guilt that you had trapped. With this vitality card as well, it could be that people want to compliment you on how you look very youthful for your age. That's something that I'm getting. And if you're like, well, I'm already young, like, don't call me old, I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying that whatever age and stage you're at, you look very radiant, you look very glowing, and this is something that people might think about you. It could be that you have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of vitality towards life. And people really admire your ability to give a lot of energy to certain situations and to put a lot of effort in, whether it be with your job, your relationships, just with anything. They really admire that about you. Okay, that is what I am getting with your oracle reading, pal 2. We are just going to move along to the tarot section, so please bear with me and we'll go on to that. Hi pal 2, welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's just get into it. Okay, pal 2, we have 2 of Wands, we have Justice, we have the Wheel of Fortune reversed, we have the World, we have the 4 of Swords, we have Temperance, we have the Ace of Cups, and we have the Knight of Wands. Let me just check whether all the cards are in frame. So, pal 2, I just knew we were going to get the Justice card. Like, I just knew it because that is so you. People really admire your integrity and your ability to be accountable. I definitely feel as though people admire the fact that you are somebody who can admit when you've gone wrong. You are accountable for things. You don't try and escape from being held accountable. That is what I am getting. Like, if you have made a mistake, you will own up to that. You'll be like, you know what, I'm sorry, like, I'm not perfect. This is what I did, but I'm going to try and better myself. And people really admire your ability to do that because, even with adults, you tend to find there are a lot of people who are unwilling to admit and own up to their mistakes and admit where they went wrong. And something people really like about you and something they compliment you on is your ability to do just that, to own up to things in that way and to deal with people fairly. Because what I am getting is like you're not going to essentially lick someone's ass because they're of a certain higher status. You are going to treat people the same, whether in the social hierarchy they are way up here, like they earn this amount of money or they're a celebrity or something, versus somebody who is homeless and on the street. You are going to treat them with the same effort, the same energy. You are very fair, you are very balanced. You can offer constructive criticism, but it's not a way to hurt people. So, one example of this could be like if you train people at your job or if you teach people certain things. If you are a teacher of some kind, it could even be that, like, in your head, you know you might have like a favorite student, but regardless of how you feel, you're going to be diplomatic and you're going to treat people the same. Like, even if you know you're a teacher and you have an incredibly difficult student who is quite rude and quite abrasive, it's like you approach them with this fair energy, and that has a big impact on them. That actual student, like somebody who I'm thinking of, and this might be for somebody very specific, but it's like you don't think that they think anything good about you because maybe they don't treat you that way. Maybe they are quite rude or they swear at you or something like that. They are just sort of quite badly behaved, but they actually really appreciate that you are somebody who treats them fairly the same way you treat other people because they have not had that before. Maybe they're somebody who easily gets other members of staff like riled up, and these other members of staff kind of then treat them quite badly in return, or they expect the worst from them or something like that. And they really appreciate that you're not that kind of person. Like, even if they can be quite challenging to deal with, you're not going to turn around and treat them in a bad way. That is something that just kind of came through quite strongly, and I'm not sure why, but it doesn't have to be that exact situation. It's just whatever circumstance you're dealing with, you deal with it very fairly, and people say this about you behind your back. I feel like your friends really love that you could be like a very low maintenance friend, and don't get it confused. Like, low maintenance doesn't mean low effort or anything like that, but you are somebody who appreciates that, you know, life gets busy, and with friends, you both have to kind of meet each other in the middle, and it can't always be one way. But maybe you are quite relaxed. Like, if somebody cancels plans, you might not love it, but you might appreciate that life gets in the way and you are quite understanding of that. And people compliment you on this ability to be adaptable in that way and to adapt to changes of plan. Even if like you don't deal normally well with like changes of plan and it's not something you're entirely comfortable with, you don't treat people as if it's the worst thing in the world to change the plan. You are very understanding that, you know, things come up in life and things happen, and sometimes plans have to change, things have to be rearranged. You are a low maintenance friend in the sense that you have understanding for that, and you bring people peace. Like with this Four of Swords, you are people's peace. They know, and it's not about like being a pushover or anything like that. If you ever were like that, you're not anymore. But people understand that you are so fair that if they are genuine and they approach you with integrity, they're going to get integrity back from you. And you are going to be their peace in the sense that, like, if they have to cancel a plan, you're not going to be one to proper kick off about it and to go on some rant about how they're never there for you and something like that. You will be quite understanding of that. You'll be quite adaptable. And it's all about your understanding that people aren't perfect because you know that you aren't perfect. Like with temperance as well, you know, that can often speak of like balance. And I get the sense that you are very grounded, like with this sense of diplomacy. You are also very grounded in your expectations, and you know that people aren't always able to approach you in the same energy all the time. And I think that's as well what I mean by like low maintenance, because sometimes you might have friends in your life who you feel like it can be a bit of a challenge to keep them happy. Like friends maybe who expect a lot or expect too much, or, you know, if you meet up, they expect you to be like full of energy all the time. And if you're somebody who like struggles with socializing, or maybe like they always expect you to go out to like a club and you don't want to do that. Sometimes, like, people can expect too much of you in that sense, but you are somebody who really knows how to manage your own expectations. You expect the same treatment in reverse as well. Like, you expect the treatment to go the other way. Like, you understand other people, so you expect them to understand you, and you develop these low maintenance but consistent effort friendships for that reason, because you are understanding of other people's circumstances and you have reasonable expectations for people. I think that is the thing. You have reasonable expectations. Like, you are not unreasonable. You are not all about taking and not giving. And people really admire you for that. They see what you give. And that makes a lot of people sort of see you as this kindred spirit. With the World card, a lot of people feel a sense of belonging with you because you do have that kind of relatable energy and that ability to see things from a lot of different sides. It's like, I don't know, if somebody is expressing something to you, do you know if you're speaking to somebody and you open up about maybe like a struggle that you deal with? Let's just say, I don't know, you say something like, oh, I really struggle to get out of the house on time in the morning. Like, I struggle to stay organized and like get my kids ready and get them out of the house. Sometimes you kind of interact with people who will respond to that with a bit of a snarky attitude, and they'll be like, no, like, I've never struggled with that. That's really weird. Like, why have you said that? Or like, why don't you just do XYZ? Like, it's not that hard. You are very much not like that. You respond in a way that makes them feel this sense of belonging because they feel really understood. You, even if you've not been through that particular issue yourself, you might be like, oh, well, like, I don't deal with that, but sometimes I deal with like blah, blah, blah. And you'll give another example, and they just appreciate the relatability factor, even if it's not to do with that exact issue. They appreciate the fact that you've acknowledged them, the fact that you also go through like a similar hardship and you can meet them halfway. Or like, if it's not something you deal with, like maybe you don't have a struggle in that way, you might give them advice, but it's not done in like a condescending way. It's not like, oh, well, you could just do this and then the problem would be solved. It would be like you saying, oh, like, actually, that reminds me, I read about this thing the other day, and like maybe you could try that and just see if it works. Like, I've read that it's worked for some people, but you understand that, you know, it might not work for everyone, and that's fine. But you're just offering this person this perspective to try and help them in a way that, you know, it's not condescending and it doesn't put them down, it doesn't make them feel belittled, it just makes them feel understood and like you've empathized with them. So it could be that the compliments people might say about you are like, oh, Pal 2 is just so understanding. They're so diplomatic. They have a lot of integrity. They are not afraid to admit when they've made a mistake, something like that. And with this Wheel of Fortune in reverse and with this Two of Wands, the compliments that people might give you behind your back actually that you are very good at dealing with misfortune very well, and you are good at leaving comfort and like moving on from situations in a way that people have a lot of respect for. So I guess it goes back to that thing we were saying in the oracle of like, you know, you could be going through the worst time of your life, but you are not putting yourself in a victimization mode over that. And of course, you are allowed to process your emotions safely and healthily. And, you know, I don't think you should hold back from expressing your emotions to people if you are going through a hard time. However, I think you are very good at adapting to life's changes and moving on. And you are good at not letting it get you down for an extended period of time. Like, you might be in your feelings. Let's say if a relationship's ended, you have your time of like being in your feelings and feeling a little bit down, but you are going to move along from that. And when you have moved along and people, you know, find out that you've been through this, they're like, I had no idea that has happened to you because you look amazing. Like, you look glowing. You've obviously moved on from that situation. You're not letting it get you down. I think that's the thing. People are very proud of you for not letting the bad things that have happened to you in your life get you down. You could have gone through some quite negative events, but you've not let it destroy you. You've not let it become your whole world. It could also be that people compliment you behind your back on your creative ability, whether that's, you know, just something as simple as like the way you do your hair or makeup or something like that. It could be that, or it could be like if you put artwork out into the world in some way, or you do nails, or you do other people's makeup or hair, or just like any kind of art form that you do, if you're a musician, if you're a writer, whatever it is, people give you a lot of compliments behind your back. Like maybe they don't always validate this to your face because they think that you already know that you are good and that you are talented. But really, they're saying to people, it could even be like family members. Maybe you grew up with a bit of imposter syndrome because, like, maybe your family members weren't the type to like give praise on something that you're doing. But behind your back, they're saying to other people, like maybe if it's your parent or something, they're like, my son or my daughter is doing XYZ. They are so talented. Like they are amazing at this. Look at this artwork that they've done. And that might be something that shocks you because you don't think that your parent would behave that way, but that is very much what they are doing. I think you are so level headed, maybe because when you were being brought up, maybe this person didn't want you to get like a big head, and maybe they didn't sort of boost you up that much in that way. But they do really admire you and they think you are incredibly talented if you do something like that. Another thing that people might say about you with this Knight of Wands, they might comment on the fact that there's something about you that's a little bit rebellious, but it's something that they really admire. Like, I don't know, I think you are quite a free spirit. And maybe there was a stage in your life where you didn't have the courage to be the authentic version of you and to be that free spirited person. It could be in terms of like the views you hold being different to other people. It could be sort of what we discussed in the Oracle about your sexuality or something like that, and people trying to make you feel ashamed of that. And you know, when we got the release your guilt card, maybe there was a time where a certain circumstance did make you feel ashamed, or other people were putting pressure on you to fit into this little box, or to make a decision, or to stick with one particular thing. And maybe you have gone out on a new adventure. You've been this courageous, free spirit. You've made a decision to leave comfort and try something different. And people really admire you for that. I don't know why this example is coming through, and this is very specific, so it's not going to resonate with many people. But you know, maybe if you just do something that's different to what the rest of the world are doing in a general sense, like if you are interested in exploring polyamorous relationships or something like that, if you've done that, maybe that's something your family or people around you are quite judgmental about, and maybe they've made some sort of narrow minded comments about that way of life. And this is maybe something you've doubted in the past, but a lot of people secretly behind your back are silently praising you on being this free spirit and for doing what you want to do. To other people, they might say something like, well, Pal 2 is a little bit out there, but good for them for like doing what they want to do. They are just going after what they want and they're not letting anyone make them feel ashamed. They're not letting anyone put them down over this choice that they have made. Like they're happy. And some people could actually be like a little bit envious. Like they could be a bit insecure. Like they might want to explore some of the things that you're exploring, and they might see you exploring those things, and they might say something like, do you know what? Like, I wish I could go and do that, like Pal 2's doing, but I just don't have the courage. I don't have the confidence. So, something they really admire about you is your courage. I mean, it doesn't have to be like the polyamory thing. Like I said, that's not going to resonate with many people. It could be like you go on a new adventure, literally, like traveling, and they want to travel as well or something like that, but they feel as though they can't. Maybe like going solo traveling is something they're just not confident to do, and maybe that's something you've done. And they talk about how brave you are, how courageous you are for doing something like that they could never do. Okay, that is what I am getting for you, Pal 2. I really hope this reading resonated. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, if one tiny little detail did resonate, please let me know. Please give the video a like, please comment, and please, if possible, subscribe. All of that would mean the absolute world to me, and I thank you very much for the support you've given me so far. All right, Pal 2, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Hi, Pile 3 Collective. Welcome to your reading. This reading will be all about the compliments that you get behind your back. So if you are interested in that, please stay tuned. If you want any more information, please check out the intro to this video and I will explain why I have decided to do this particular reading. But if you just want me to get straight into the reading, I'm about to do that, so please stay tuned. I really hope you enjoy the reading. If one tiny little part of this reading resonates with you, please let me know. I would love to hear about your experience listening to this. Please give me a like, please comment, and if at all possible, please subscribe. That would mean the absolute world to me. Without hesitation, let's get into your reading. So if you chose this forest green crystal tower and you chose pile 3, this will be your reading. So let's have a look at what you've got, pile 3. Okay, we've got timing, we've got preserve, we've got nostalgia, focus on the here and now, and we have trust. Let me just double check that all these cards are showing and are in frame. Please bear with me, pile 3. So just looking at the numbers on the cards, we have number 21, we have number 33, and we have number 36. So these could be significant ages for you. They don't have to be, but it could be the age you are right now. One of those ages, you could be in your 20s or in your 30s. Or if you have passed that point, or if you are coming up to any of these points, it could just be that that is the point in your life where people are complimenting you a lot behind your back, where a lot of this is happening. Again, it doesn't have to be significant, but for those whom that does apply to, this is just extra confirmation for you that this is your pile, you've chosen the right pile. So the first thing that I'm getting, pile 3, particularly when I look at this timing card, there is something about your delivery of jokes or your delivery of one-liners. People compliment you behind your back on maybe your ability to say something at just the right time. It's like if you're having a bit of banter with somebody, like if you're talking to a colleague or a friend and there are other people around, it's like you can deliver a punchline and it's said just at the right time and it makes everybody around you laugh, like they think you are really funny. You can pop in and just say things at the right time. So people might compliment you for being quite witty with your jokes, being quite quick-witted, being quite on the ball at just popping in and saying something at that exact moment and making it a really kind of humorous exchange. However, it could also refer to the fact that a lot of people might feel, and they might not tell you this, but they might feel. But it could also refer to the fact that a lot of people feel as if you have entered their life or you have come back into their life. I'm getting with the nostalgia card and the preserve, but we'll go on to talk about that in just a moment. But it's like you've entered their life or you've come back into their life at just the right time, like your timing is on point. And it doesn't mean that your timing is in like you're never late for anything or anything like that. I mean, it could be, but I know like my ADHD listeners out there will be like, well, that's not me. So it doesn't have to be like actual physical timing. But it could just be that your friends, the people close to you, feel as though, yeah, like you've entered their life at just the right time. Because with this trust card as well, and we will, go on to talk about that in a little bit more detail, but it feels as though people open up to you quite a lot. And it could be that they feel you come to them at just the right time. It could be that people think you're quite intuitive or you have the ability to pick up on when they need you. So, for example, it could be that, like, maybe you haven't spoken to one of your friends in a while and they're going through a really hard time and maybe they haven't reached out to you yet. It could be that you pop up in a message to them and you're just thinking of them that day and you're like, oh, how are you? Like, not heard from you in a while and you just popped into my head. And they're like, oh my goodness, pile 3 popped up at just the right time. It's like they knew I was going through this situation and they've popped back up just when I needed them the most or something like that. It could feel like something quite coincidental like that, but it always happens where you pop back up to somebody just when they need you the most or something like that, or just when they were about to reach out to you. And they could even say, like, even if they're not going through a hard time, they could even say, oh my gosh, that's so weird. I had a dream about you last night, or I was literally going to message you. I was thinking of you today. And then you popped up before they had chance or something like that. And it came just at the right time. I know I keep using that phrase, I'm sorry, but it just keeps popping into my head with this card. Timing is what it's all about. So that's something that, your friends could say to other friends. It's like pile three just popped in at the right time. They popped in when I needed them most. Something else that I'm thinking of as well with all these nostalgia cards, I really feel like you get a lot of compliments from people in your past, maybe people who you don't speak to as much anymore. And with the timing card in particular, it makes me think of, like, let's say your friendship group from high school or something like that are on a night out and they're reflecting on some fond memories and they're talking about you. And then the timing is just right because they happen to bump into you on that night out and you haven't seen each other in years or something like that, but they were just talking about how fun things used to be with you, and then you suddenly like pop up out of the blue at the same place that they are. And it's like this weird coincidence, but it just is kind of like when people are around you, they feel like everything aligns perfectly, like they feel as though the timing is just right. Sorry, I know I keep saying it, but it could even be they feel as though they are quite lucky when they're around you. Maybe they literally call you like a source of good luck or something like that. Like maybe when they go out with you, things just happen to fall into place at just the right moment. So this could be sort of weird coincidences, like, so I don't know, maybe you're at a restaurant with a friend or something like that, and you decide to order a bowl of chips to share. And you finish the bowl of chips and you're still both a little bit hungry. You're like, oh, maybe we should have just got our own bowl of chips or something like that. And then one of the waiters or waitresses comes over to you and they say, we've accidentally made an extra bowl of chips for this table. Like, do you want it? Or something like that. Doesn't have to be exactly that, but just these weird and lucky coincidences. People feel as though that happens more when they're around you, and it makes them compliment you on being some kind of lucky charm, like they talk about it to other people. And they're like, oh, this never happens when I'm alone or I'm with somebody else. This only seems to happen when I'm with pal three. It could even be like, oh, like when I'm out with pal three, I just tend to get more free drinks. And yeah, like it doesn't happen with anybody else. It's just pal three. It's like they're my little lucky charm or something like that. It could also be that you have a lot of people in your life, pal three, that really do want to spend a lot of time with you. For some reason, I want to say they want to take a lot of your time, but I don't mean that in a way like they're being malicious. It's just, I feel that often people use you as a sounding board for their problems because you are really somebody who they feel they can trust. With this trust card, they feel as though they can open up to you about all their problems, and you are maybe the person who somebody rings for like 2 hour long phone calls. They really trust you with their secrets and their personal problems. You might be one of those people who you tend to find that not long after you've met somebody, they open up to you quite quickly about some quite personal things, some things that, you might think you would usually keep hidden. It's like they open up to you and they're just kind of spilling all this information, and you're like, why are they telling me this? But it's like they feel you are very trustworthy. They feel like it won't go any further. And your friends in particular might really try to take up a lot of your time for this reason. You might experience a lot of frustration from people because of this, because they can't have access to you at all times and they really want it. Like, they really value your advice and they really appreciate having you around. It could be that they compliment you by saying to other people, oh, I love having a little bit of a vent to pal three. They always give me really helpful advice. They always validate my feelings. They always allow me to just vent, and they're a really nice source of comfort for me, or something like that. But it could be that you experience a little bit of frustration from people when they can't have access to you at all times, which obviously isn't fair. But it's like maybe people don't tell you, but they really value that time with you. So if you're having like a busy month and you can't see somebody, it's like they're patiently waiting for the next opportunity where they get to see you, because they know that they want to spend a lot of time with you. They want a lot of time dedicated to them from you, which can be a little bit selfish on their part at times, but I do feel as though it's because they want to carry on this very genuine connection with you, because they maybe don't have other friendships that are like that are quite open, where they can tell their secrets, where they can openly and honestly vent, but they really do trust you. And obviously, it's important as we get older, even though our priorities might change to some degree, it's important for us to also make effort maintaining our friendships. And I feel like that's something you definitely do. But occasionally life does get in the way. We have to prioritize families, we might have to prioritize a job, a partner, things like that. And it's like you might experience a little bit of frustration when you can't meet up with somebody, like a friend, for a certain amount of time because they just really want to be in your energy. They enjoy spending that time with you. With the nostalgia card, it makes me feel as though this could also refer to people from the past. It might be quite difficult for you to cut people off because it could be that they always seem to want to return to you. The nostalgia card is really, really making me think that people have so many fond memories of you. So it could be that you end up in a lot of situations where people from the past want to reconnect with you because they really think about these good memories that they have with you. They talk to other people about them. They might give you compliments in the way that they're kind of explaining, like, oh, I had the best times of my life with Pal 3. We used to get up to this. Pal 3 was so much fun. We did this together. Like, honestly, they are such a nice person. I really miss spending time with them, or something like that. Even if they don't say it to other people, they're thinking kind of along those lines. So it could be that when you meet up with a group of people, or like even just one person from your past, when you bump into somebody who you used to be friends with in high school, and most of the time it's just like a little quick hello and a catch up, and sometimes it can even be a little bit awkward because you've both grown and changed a lot, so it's kind of difficult to know where to start with the catching up. And I don't know whether you do this, it could be like a really British, like trying to be overly polite thing, but do you know when you say to that person, well, I feel like you both say to each other, oh, like we need to do something soon. And the other person's like, yeah, definitely, we need to hang out again. And then both of you know that you have no intention whatsoever of hanging out. So it's like you might be the kind of person to have that exchange with somebody, but they genuinely mean it when they say they want to hang out with you again because you bring up so many nostalgic and comforting and fond memories for them. And it's like they are genuinely pleased to see you when they bump into you. They want to know what's going on in your life because they think about you a lot. They do think of you, even if it's not a lot, they do definitely think of you from time to time. And maybe you are the person they had the most fun memories with, and they tell people about that. So they're really actually pleased to see you and they do want to spend more time with you. It's like they want to get back in your life. It could be that, like, you still have some of these people on social media, and maybe you get a lot of messages, like if you post a meme or something, or just something funny, and you get a lot of messages from people from your past saying something like, oh, like, you haven't changed one bit, you're still so funny. And then they're like, we need to hang out soon because they just want to be in your life again, or something like that. It could be with like partners, ex romantic partners. So be careful with that if you get anyone sliding into your DMs and you don't want anything to do with them anymore. Be careful because it's like they still want to hold on to your energy. With nostalgia as well, it's making me feel as though people might give you compliments behind your back based on their own projections. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but what I mean by that is that with this card, it's making me think that you are a person who, when people meet you, you might remind them of someone or something in their past. Or it could even be that you get a lot of compliments like, oh, you remind me of such a body, and it's like an attractive celebrity or something like that. Or that's what people are thinking anyway when they meet you. It could also be like you make people feel at home. You just remind them of like a homely or comforting or fond feeling from the past in some way. When it says focus on the here and now, it could be that people compliment you on your ability to like live in the moment and really enjoy the moment. Maybe you're somebody who engages with mindfulness or who practices mindfulness, and people just really appreciate your ability to remain present. And this could also be in relation to listening, being an active listener, not, zoning out when somebody's talking to you or something like that. And with this preserve card as well, I really do feel as though people again, share a lot of fond memories of you, and when they talk about these memories with other people, they tend to focus more on you and on complimenting you. So it could be that they're more focused on like what you did in that memory. So they might say like, "Oh, we did this and then pal 3 said something so funny and blah 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 to this other person." So it's more focused on what you were doing. Your sort of actions, what you did that day is kind of ingrained in people's memories, and people always want to share like funny stories or just fun things about you with other people because maybe the best time of their life was when they were with you or something like that. With this preserve card as well, it's also making me feel like people don't want to let you go, like people want to preserve the relationship with you. So it could be a bit of a challenge for you, like ending relationships with people because it's like the other person just wants to cling on to it. And they might not tell you this, but it's as though they feel like you are somebody who is very much worth holding on to, like you are the reward in some way. They want to preserve you. I know this is a very, very strange comparison, but it's making me think of like when people preserve butterflies or something like that, and they want to sort of put them behind a glass frame and hang them on their wall or something like that. It's like maybe the people who you've been in a relationship with, it feels as though they want to do that with you, which I know sounds really weird. And for some people, it could be a little bit toxic, like they want to keep you all to themselves, they want to preserve you. Because that analogy came into my head, it could be that they literally just think you are so beautiful and they want you to be looked at but not touched or something like that. They want to kind of have you on their arm. They see you as a reward, like a prize or something, which is a little bit objectifying. Anyone who thinks that way, they see it as a compliment, but obviously it is a little bit problematic. So take that in whatever way it means to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be toxic like that. It could just be that people really value your advice. They value your ability to listen. They value the fact that they can trust you a lot, that they have so many fond memories of you, and therefore they just really want to preserve the relationship and try to make it work. And they might not say it all the time, but because they value you so much, it's like they want to protect the relationship they have with you at all costs or something like that. The trust card is also making me think that maybe your colleagues say that you are very reliable, a very trustworthy person to work with, or something like that. It could be that you are in a role where you have to develop trust with the people you are working with. Maybe you are in a role where people are expressing some quite personal things and they feel very comfortable doing this with you because they feel as though you are a good active listener, and because they feel as though if they open up, they won't be judged. You will just listen and you will help them. They feel as though you won't go spreading their secrets to anyone else or something like that. Okay, that is what I am getting for you, Pile 3, with your oracle reading. Bear with me, we are now going to move on to the tarot portion of your reading. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Okay, Pile 3, I'll see you in the tarot reading. Hi, Pile 3 Collective. Welcome back to the tarot portion of your reading. Without hesitation, let's have a look at the cards you got. Okay, Pile 3, we got 7 of Pentacles. We got the 6 of Swords. We got the 7 of Swords. We got the Ace of Wands. We got the Hermit. We got Strength. We got the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. And we got the 7 of Wands. Let me just check and see whether all the cards are in frame. Please bear with me, Pile 3. Okay, Pile 3. So the first thing I'm getting with this 7 of Pentacles, it makes me feel as though people compliment you on your patience, and that could be in relation to your friendship groups. Like if you are a very good listener and you really help people, you give them advice. It could be that you have helped people overcome situations that have required a lot of patience on your end. So I don't know why, but it's making me think of like maybe you helping a friend out of like a toxic or abusive relationship or something like that. And maybe this could have been something quite frustrating on your end, or maybe something that other people might have lost their temper about if they were dealing with it, because it could be that maybe this friend you had kept going back to this person, but because you have also done like a lot of introspection and self reflection, it's like you have more understanding for this other person and their motivations. So, whoever you have helped, whether this is a person, whether it's multiple people, they are very grateful for your patience and your perseverance in helping them. It could even be the person you were in a relationship with, or if you are in a relationship now, they feel as though you're really patient with them. If they struggle with certain things, it's like you don't make them feel rushed or under pressure. You really take your time and explore their emotions with them, or something like that. This could also be in a work situation. So, for example, if you have to train people or you're a teacher and maybe you're dealing with difficult students or something like that, it doesn't have to be this exact example, but just something where you are having to utilize patience and you are having to keep your temper under control or something like that. This could refer to that, the fact that you deal with those situations really well and other people around you really notice this. The example I gave about helping your friend leave an abusive situation, I think it was because of Six of Swords popping up in the reading, because it's making me think that maybe you have assisted people with moving on, with creating distance in their bad relationships or something like that. You've helped them move on, you have helped them depart that situation. And they really appreciate all your good advice and your listening and your patience with them during that time. They compliment you on your ability to help them with that. This could also be in relation to people complimenting your ability to move on, like if you have left a bad situation, because so many people have memories of you and they still think of you quite a lot. It could be that they see you and they're like, wow, like Pal 3 has just managed to move right on and has managed to better themselves. And I'm still stuck thinking about Pal 3, even if, they aren't open about that, like they're not saying it to people. It's something that they're thinking when they look at, your social media or something like that. They're like, right, well, they have moved on so easily and I've just not, like, what is wrong with me that I can't stop thinking about Pal 3, but they clearly don't even think about me or something like that. So the compliments you are getting behind your back at the moment, Pal 3, some of them I do feel unfortunately come with a little bit of toxicity on this other person's end. I feel like there are a lot of people from your past who are still thinking about you and who still want access to you. And maybe you have a good reason that, they don't have access to you at the moment, or you had to stop that access. So if that is the case, like, obviously stick to your own boundaries. You don't have to give in to anyone just because it's coming up on a tarot reading that they want access to you. You don't have to give them that access. Stay grounded and listen to your own intuition. However, if there is someone from the past who you are interested in communicating again with this Ace of Pentacles in reverse, I'm getting a compliment that you are getting is that a lot of people feel as though you are a missed opportunity. They're like, oh, I could have had everything with Pal 3 and I really missed my chance. I wish I could speak to Pal 3 again. I feel like this is a missed opportunity. I feel like I'm not going to get them back. And back to this Seven of Pentacles. They're mad about that because they really feel as though you are a reward, like you are everything. And it could maybe be interpreted as a little bit gross because it feels like this person is kind of seeing you as like a trophy, which they think is a compliment. But it is a bit like, like, obviously you don't want someone in your life who just sees you as a trophy, but on their end, the way they talk about you, it's like they feel as though they would have everything with you. They'd be happy. They'd kind of want to take you places and show you off. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be something gross and objectifying. But it could just be something like an ex of yours saying, oh, I used to love taking pal 3 to my work's do, or something like that, because they got on so well with everyone and we just had a good time, and I feel like I can't take my current partner to my work's do because they don't have that same energy, like XYZ. It could be something like that, but they give you those kind of compliments. They just feel as though you fit in very well with the group of people that they surround themselves with. But for some, this could be a bit more toxic, like they just see you as arm candy in a way and they want to show you off, or they just want to make you theirs again, is what I'm getting for some people, which, you know, could be interpreted as a little bit gross because nobody owns anyone else. But I feel as though you definitely have somebody coming through who they see it as a compliment that they're being sort of quite protective. Protective is what I'm getting, because with this Seven of Wands as well, like protectiveness is very much coming through. I mean, it might not even be like an ex-romantic interest. It could just be somebody who has an unreciprocated interest in you. And it could be something like they are sort of unnecessarily protective over you and they see it as a compliment. But maybe on your end, it just comes across as a bit like, why are you trying to get in my business? Because I'm getting the image of somebody who has sort of unrequited feelings for you, let's say, and they're looking at your pictures on social media, and maybe you're in a relationship with somebody else. So maybe there's a picture of you on a night out with your current partner and a group of friends or something like that. And maybe this person sat at home looking at those pictures and they're saying something like, my pal 3 would be so much better with me. Like, I would give them everything. They are so much better than this other person who they're with. Why are they wasting their time on this person? They are like putting you on a pedestal, like you are so far above this other person who you've decided to be with. And in a way, it's because this Seven of Wands protective person, this person with unrequited feelings, they think it's because they like want what's best for you, but it does feel a little bit annoying on your end that it's feeling as though they're not trusting you to make your own decisions and decide what's best for you. It could be that they have a lot of judgment for this other person who you're with. Like maybe if they see this group picture of you all together and you're not wearing a coat or something like that, it could be that this person's like, well, if pal 3 was with me, I would offer them my coat. Like, pal 3 looks really cold and their partner hasn't even sorted that out. Their partner hasn't even offered to give them their jacket or something like that. It could be that there's a lot of judgment because they see you as this reward, this prize, this Seven of Pentacles, and they're seeing maybe the person you're with or the person you're dealing with as unworthy in some way. And I don't know whether they think that like they're even worthy, because I do sense as well with the Seven of Pentacles, they are quite aware that it would be like hard work to get you, but I think they should be working hard to get you. It's not like, oh, pal 3 is so hard work, like I'm not going to make the effort. It's like they want to make the effort because they know that you are worth it, but maybe you're with this other person or you just don't even like this Seven of Wands person, so you're not really giving them attention, you're not really giving them the time of day. But it's like they think about you all the time. Maybe it is somebody from your past, but it doesn't have to be. But they think of you all the time and they're saying to themselves like, oh, if I just had pal 3, like pal 3 is everything that I want, they're this, they're that. They're just giving you a lot of compliments, even if it's just to themselves. But I feel like maybe the feelings aren't mutual. So, but I don't know if you know who that is, but that was coming through very strongly. So I just had to mention it. So the Hermit card reminds me of like the trust card that we got in the Oracle reading, because it makes me feel as though people trust you to keep their secrets to yourself. Like people compliment you on essentially the fact that you're not like a blabbermouth, you don't go spilling everyone's secrets. You keep their secrets safe with this Hermit energy, and also people compliment your ability for introspection and your ability to self-reflect on your own actions. With the Ace of Wands, it's making me feel as though people compliment you on your enthusiasm, your passion, and your creativity. So if you do something creative, this could be something you get a lot of compliments on. If you have a hobby or if part of your work, part of your job is a creative endeavor, you could get a lot of compliments about that you don't even know about. It could also be that you're great with ideas. So, going back to this situation where people really feel listened to by you and maybe you give them good advice, it could be that with this Ace of Wands, your ideas for dealing with certain situations are really well thought out and really clever, and they do actively help the person who you're dealing with. Maybe you give the person who needs advice from you a new perspective, and your ideas are what allows them to sort of change their situation and get some drive to change whatever situation they want to change. With the Seven of Swords, it feels like people compliment your strategy, the way you go about things. So, this could refer to, do you know the timing card in the Oracle reading? The Seven of Swords makes me think of that. It makes me think as though people, and this could be in a work situation, but I guess it can be applicable to any situation. People compliment your ability to come in at the right time, maybe to wait it out if you are in a job role where there is something you have to wait for, like you have to wait for the right time to take action or something like that. People who you work with could really compliment your ability to be strategic in that sense. And the Strength card goes without saying. People compliment you on being a strong person in some way. So it could be that you have been through a lot of hardship yourself and you've come out the other side and people really admire your strength. It could just be that, because I sense that you are somebody who gives a lot of your friends advice and you are this sounding board, it could be that people really appreciate your compassion, your ability to take on other people's problems and to help deal with them, to help stick up for them, to help protect your friends. That could be you with the Seven of Wands energy. It could be that people really appreciate you being protective, you sticking up for them in some way, and you being this strong person, this person who they see as very resilient, who might have been through your own struggles, but you never turn another person away if they are dealing with something and they need your help. That is very much what I am getting with those cards, Pile 3. Okay, Pile 3, that is what I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope it resonated. If any tiny little detail at all did resonate, please let me know. Please like the video, please comment, and if at all possible, please subscribe. Thank you, Pile 3. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Hi, Pile 4 Collective. Welcome to your reading. If you chose this deep purple crystal tower, this will be your reading. This reading is all about the compliments you get behind your back, what people admire about you but don't necessarily say. We are going to be covering all that in the upcoming reading. We are going to be starting your reading off by looking at a few oracle cards. You can use this as an energy check. Then in the tarot portion of the reading, the second portion, we will be going into more detail and elaborating on this energy. If you'd like more information about this reading and why I decided to go for this topic, please check out the introduction. But if you are just here to see your pile, without hesitation, let's get started, Pile 4. Okay, so we have Yin, we have See Beyond, we have Lioness, You've Earned All Your Stripes, and we have Divination. Okay, so this is really strange. One thing that I'm noticing is that the numbers are quite similar, and this has happened in a few piles. I mean, not that other piles have had similar numbers to you, but that all the cards in your oracle reading have quite similar numbers. So these could be significant ages to you. Maybe something that happened around this age is significant to this reading. So up here we have number 10. Here we have number 13 and here we have number 14. So this could be a significant age for you in some way. Doesn't have to be the age you are now, but it could be that something maybe happened in your childhood, in your preteen years, or in your teenage years, and this might be significant to the reading in some way. So if that kind of rings a bell, it sparks a chord with you, then carry on listening because it sounds like you've chosen the right pile. Okay, pile four. With this yin card, this is making me feel as though people really compliment your feminine energy. You could have a very yin dominant energy. And by that, I don't mean you have to be a woman. This has nothing to do with gender specifically. It could just be that people compliment you on the things about you that make you feminine, whichever gender identity you align with. Now, if you do identify as being a woman, this could refer to the shape of your body because for some reason I'm getting like the kibby body types coming through. And I know not everyone subscribes to that system, not everybody is interested in that kind of thing, and that's absolutely fine. If I'm honest, I also don't know a great deal about the kibby system. It's just something I've heard of. And I've heard of people being yin dominant. So if you are a woman, you could be yin dominant in that sense. You could have a voluptuous or soft body type that you get a lot of compliments on. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound horribly objectifying, but it could be that you are well endowed in terms of your body or something like that. Like people give you compliments on your boobs or your bum or your hips, your thighs. Like if you are shapely, it could be that people give you compliments about that. But maybe you don't hear them. Maybe it's when you are literally walking away and people are looking at you or something like that. Or maybe if you turn up to an event and you're wearing a more figure hugging outfit, maybe this is something that people compliment you on and they talk about how you look to other people, saying you look amazing or something like that, or you've worn something that really emphasizes and suits your figure, something like that. Or it could just be that people compliment you on like having soft or delicate features, and this could apply even if you identify as being a man. And if you are a man, please don't get offended by that or think like, well, I don't want to be feminine. I want to be like a big butch man or something like that. I'm not saying that you can't be. Again, everyone has like a balance. It's just that even if you are some big burly man, and you lift weights and you're in the gym all the time and you're really tall and you don't identify as being like soft in that way, it could just be that there is something beautiful and delicate about one of your facial features and people really admire this. They give you a lot of compliments on it. Maybe it's just something soft about the look in your eyes or you having really nice bone structure or something like that. People compare you to a celebrity with really nice bone structure or with a more stereotypically feminine feature, but people find it really attractive. And again, the same could apply if you do identify as a woman. I just wanted to give examples for both. Hi, Pile 4. It is Editing Nosy Witch popping in here just with another couple of messages because when I was looking at the footage back for your pile, I realised that I missed a couple of things out, and honestly, I'm so mad at myself because I can't believe that I forgot to mention this when I was originally talking about like bodies and feminine energy and things like that, about softness. But this is coming through so strongly that I just had to pop back on and put an extra little portion in your video. So if you're wondering why my outfit's changed, that's why I'm wearing another dog walking oversized jumper and I have no nails on at the moment, so please ignore my short stubby hands. But I just had to mention this, so yeah, I'm just adding an extra bit in. I hope you enjoy it. I just had to add this bit in because looking back at the cards, it just makes so much sense why this was coming through and also potentially why I mentioned these ages like 10, 13 and 14. So let's just go back into that quickly. But looking at all these cards together and just going back to what we were talking about with you being maybe like more curvaceous, if you do identify with having that more shapely figure or something like that. And with this lioness card, it makes me feel like you could very much be complimented on your resilience in terms of maybe previously having body image issues, which you have now overcome. And maybe now you really advocate for body confidence, and that inspires a lot of other people around you. But maybe it's taken you quite a long time to get there. And now there's this sort of fearlessness surrounding you with this lioness card. And with like the word stripes as well, it's making me think of like all the things we are shamed for. If you once identified as a teenage girl, growing up in this world, it was difficult. Like all the things we used to be shamed for, often things that are completely out of our control, like having stretch marks, that's literally just your body growing. It is a natural thing to go through. And yet we were shamed for it. Like if we were in high school and we were getting changed for PE, we were also self-conscious of showing those things, or like if you've been through a pregnancy and your body changing in that way and having more stretch marks or something like that, it could be that you now fearlessly show that side of yourself. You're quite vulnerable. Maybe you have a platform online where you discuss those things. And people really want to compliment you on your fearlessness for talking about the things that sometimes we are afraid to talk about, previous insecurities and things like that. So, a little story time coming up, and I will try not to waffle on too much about my experience, but I do want to mention it briefly because I think that it is something that a lot of people will be able to relate to, and it is coming through quite strongly in this pile. So, I was somebody who was born in the 90s and I was a teenager in the early 2000s. And I just know that if you are a similar age to me, you more than likely dealt with a lot of body image issues growing up, because I know that I did, and I know that a lot of people around me did. If you were a teenager in the early 2000s, there was a very narrow minded view on what was considered beautiful and what was considered the ideal body type. And I'm sure as I'm saying this, you have a kind of image in your head of what that was. In terms of body shape, it was that very like straight up and down, not many curves, or huge boobs on an otherwise small frame. But the boobs could not be saggy, they had to be very firm and perky and upright, so usually implants. And if some poor soul was unfortunate enough out there to not be able to access breast implants, a smaller chest was preferable because God forbid boobs sag. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Narrow hips, maybe abs, long blonde hair, tanned skin, a very Eurocentric kind of ideal. In terms of celebrities, that's all you would see as being presented as the ideal. And also, I know that if you grew up in that time, you probably had access to all those magazines that were shaming female celebrities in particular. If they put on a pound, if they had a more curvier body type, they were always seen as like the fat girl. Just absolutely horrific things were being said about celebrities, and I think that definitely had an impact on any people who were consuming that content. Undoubtedly, it did. How could it not? We were constantly being told that that was the ideal. And I'm not sitting here wanting to shame any particular body type. I know that there are people out there who have that kind of figure naturally. They are quite lean, quite like straight up and down. They have long blonde hair and tan skin, and that is absolutely fine. If you are that way, you look beautiful. You are not less deserving of being complimented than anyone else. If I am describing the way that you look here, this is no shade whatsoever to you. There is nothing wrong with your body. I'm also not shaming anyone who has implants. I don't think there is anything wrong with that. If that's a choice you've made and it's something that you're happy with and that's what makes you feel good and confident, I am all for that. I have nothing to say to that other than good for you. I'm sure you look amazing with implants or without implants, and I'm happy if you're happy. However, the fact that this body type was praised as being the only version of what could be considered beautiful during this time led to a lot of us trying to force ourselves into that very narrow box. And many of us just weren't designed to have that body type. We weren't designed to look that way. And instead of being able to see our own beauty and being able to understand that lots of different people are beautiful, we instead tried to force ourselves into often engaging with ridiculous diets, restrictive behaviours. Some of us fell into eating disorders and just very severe body image issues due to what we were being presented with by the external world in terms of expectations on how people should look. It was just this extremely narrow lens. Another thing that's popping into my head is like Tumblr and the thigh gap and like the pro-Ana content that was rife on there back in the day. If you know, you know. If not, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, those were things that were very much present in my life growing up. And I therefore dealt with a lot of the aforementioned things, particularly body image issues. I think if you were a female growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, it's like it was pretty unavoidable. That's what I'll say. I think a lot of us were victims of this. So I remember up until about the age of 10 myself, before I hit puberty, I was extremely skinny. I was straight up and down. I was always being encouraged to eat more, and I did eat quite a lot, but that was just my natural shape. And then as I approached puberty, when I was around 12, 13, when things started to change, they really did change quite drastically, and I remember developing quite early on. I remember being around this age, 13, 14, and already having quite big boobs, a big bum, and quite wide hips. And I often remember being treated differently to my peers or being sexualized because of this. And if you were in a similar position when you were growing up, when you hit puberty, when you were a teenager, I'm sure you can understand this and relate to this feeling. So it's like, on one hand, if you had that slightly curvier figure, you were usually labeled as like fat or chubby, even if that was not the case. And even if you do identify as being fat or chubby, even if you are, like, that doesn't give anyone the right to comment on your body when you haven't asked for that. So I think that's one important thing to remember. But I remember significantly throughout high school, I was always around like a UK size 8 to 10, which is a pretty average size on the smaller end. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, if you were a size 8 to 10, like you weren't even curvy, it is a relatively small size. I do have to mention that I am quite short. I'm around 5 foot. So although this size might not be curvy on somebody taller than me, it was curvy for me. And I was definitely viewed as like one of the bigger or chubbier girls in school, because at that age, a lot of the girls at school hadn't developed yet. And it's like I suddenly sort of felt quite alienated from my body because I suddenly had boobs and a bum and hips out of nowhere. And I felt a little bit out of control with it because this was something that was commented on often by adult men. It was sexualized by adult men. I was just treated differently because of it all of a sudden, while simultaneously being considered less desirable by my peers and people in my own age bracket because I had this shape, which as a teenage girl is quite difficult to deal with. Like, you're already having all these emotions, you're going through these massive emotional, hormonal changes, and then you get all these physical changes as well. And it can be quite difficult to deal with in those moments, especially when it feels as though other people around you are quite shallow. Obviously, their mentality hasn't developed yet, your brain hasn't developed yet, and it can all just be quite overwhelming, especially when it's something you feel like you can't change. And I know that was very much the case for me, because it wasn't just a weight thing. It was like from that point onwards, I could lose or gain weight, but it would be more my proportions. Like, I couldn't change my physical bone structure, like the size of my hips compared to my waist. That wouldn't kind of change. It would always be the same ratio, regardless of whether I lost or gained weight or something like that. And it was just always something that I was very conscious of, and it felt difficult because I had a lot of awareness that I wasn't considered the ideal. And that can be difficult to get your head around as a teenage girl, and it can lead to a lot of self-esteem and body image issues. It wasn't until I became much older that I was actually ever complimented on having a desirable figure in any way. And unfortunately, I know the only reason for that is because the ideal body type changed more towards like the Kardashians and things like that. And I'm not going to go into that whole debate because that is a whole other thing. But I think the point of this is that self-esteem and happiness in our own body and our own skin has to come from within, because your body is your home and it should not be a fashion trend. It should not be something that goes in and out of fashion and that you change your opinion on how much it can be valued based on what society currently deems acceptable. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think that you are very much somebody who could have battled with similar things to what I mentioned, and you have come through the other side and you now have a lot of fearlessness and body confidence. And this is something that people really admire you for. It's something that they compliment you on behind your back. Yeah, it could be that you literally advocate for body confidence online and people can really see that it's genuine, that you have a lot of love for yourself, that you've made peace with whatever issues you've had, if you did have any in the past. And that is something you've worked through, and it also gives them encouragement and inspiration to feel that way about themselves and to work on their own body confidence and their own issues in that way. It could be, if you've dealt with those issues in the past, that you have a lot of awareness for other people struggling, and maybe people really respect you for not commenting on other people's bodies, not commenting on other people's weight. I know sometimes work settings can get a little bit toxic in that way, with people talking about the amount of calories in XYZ and they're trying to lose this amount of weight. And maybe people really admire you for the fact that you're not like that. They can tell that you're happy in your own body. And maybe if you talk about exercise, it's more in the way of speaking about joyful movement and the things our body can do that aren't to do with how we look from an external perspective. This is something people really admire and appreciate about you, and maybe they don't always say, but you just seem like somebody who is now very content with where they're at, and somebody who, maybe exercises or you eat food as enjoyment, as nourishment, and you're not focused on fitting into a dress or superficial things like that. It's like you have moved past it and people really want to compliment you on that. And I just know as well, if you do identify with being somebody who developed from very early on, I know you would have been treated differently, especially if you're somebody who grew up in the same time that I did. And I'm acting like it was so long ago, like centuries ago. It really wasn't, but I think things have changed quite rapidly. And there is more awareness being brought to these issues, but unfortunately, I think it's still a problem even now. And if you are a teenager now, or you have been a teenager more recently than me, you're probably thinking it's still really bad and we have a long way to go. And I think you're right with that. But obviously, I'm just talking about my own experience, and I don't want to speak for anyone else's, but I get the sense that some people watching this might really be able to relate to this story. And obviously, I'm talking about school a lot because that's who, when you're growing up, you often compare yourself to, is peers from school and things like that. And the school I actually went to a couple of schools when I was a teenager, but both schools I went to, we wore a uniform anyway, and I know that is the case for the majority of schools in the UK. But I know if you're elsewhere in the world, this could have been in the form of you being dress coded for things that other people weren't dress coded for. I remember being penalised for staff members at school on school trips for what I was wearing, if I was wearing a top and you could see a little bit of cleavage. And obviously, when you're a teenager, you just want to fit in with the fashion trends and you want to do what other people are doing, what your friends are doing, what your peers are doing. So it could be I was wearing the exact same top as the girl sat next to me, and her top was just as low cut as mine was, but I would be the one who would be penalised by a member of staff because I had bigger boobs. Or it's just if you wear a fitted outfit, it is commented on more, or you are seen in a certain light. You are seen as being more sexual just due to the shape of your body. And I really think it's unfair, especially in terms of the fact that, if a teenager is wearing a more revealing outfit, it's we often jump straight to shaming them and saying my parents wouldn't let me out in that and they should focus on this, that, and they shouldn't be focusing on sexualizing themselves and showing their body. which I understand. I wish that was something that teenagers did not have to focus on. But it's very hypocritical of us to say that, especially in terms of my experience, because yes, on the one hand, we tell teenagers they shouldn't be focusing on their body, they shouldn't even be thinking of that kind of stuff. And then in the same breath, we as adults are commenting on teenagers' bodies. With our actions, we are confirming that they deserve to be treated in a certain way because of how their body looks, because of their shape. And I'm not talking about incidents where somebody is being actually inappropriate in how they dress, as in their whole bum is out, their whole genitals are out or on show or something like that. I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about the experience of people being treated differently based on how they are perceived due to something that's out of their control. Every time we dress code a curvy girl for looking too sexy, even if she is wearing an item of clothing that fits her absolutely fine, even if she is wearing the same item of clothing as a less curvy girl, and we don't comment on that less curvy girl's outfit, we don't sexualize it, we are sexualizing teenagers unnecessarily. We are bringing attention to their bodies. We are making them self-conscious about those things, whilst in the same breath telling them not to think about those things. And I just find it so hypocritical because I know that staff members' comments of my body really stuck with me. I remember being 15 and attending parties with my friends who were all the same age as me, and I remember vividly receiving sexual comments from adult men in that friend's family. In one incident, this was their father, and at the time, I definitely laughed it off. But now, looking back at it as an adult woman, I realize just how inappropriate that was. And I could never imagine speaking to someone that way who was a teenager, who was a literal child at the time. It is just so bizarre. So the reason I'm going on about this is because it could be that people really want to compliment you on bringing light to these issues. Maybe you stick up for people who have gone through something like that. And I get the sense that maybe you have been someone who has had to reclaim your sexuality at certain points. Maybe there were times in your childhood or early teenage years where, due to people's own disgusting behavior, unfortunately, you were sexualized, and maybe that led you to behaving in certain ways that were just a response of that trauma, that were just in response to people's treatment of you. And if this is in relation to the adults in your life, it was their job to know better. Please don't blame yourself for anything that might have happened around that time. It could be that you decided from a certain point to behave in a more provocative way because you realized that that was the way that you could access the things that you wanted. And you very much thought like, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I wear. People are going to sexualize me. People are going to do this and that. So I might as well use that to my advantage. And maybe this is something that you have kind of taken, like you've taken the trauma of that situation and you've turned it into advocating for other people. You've turned it into something good. You've used it as a way to grow. And now you are comfortable in your sexuality and with your body, but in a way that feels more empowering than maybe it once did. It's like maybe you've taken back control of whatever situation you went through in the past in that way. And people really respect and admire you for that. It's something they really want to compliment you on. They are like, Pal 4 has taken all that negative energy, all that judgment from other people, all that experience of somebody sexualizing them, and they've made it into something that they can take ownership on. They've stepped into their power by taking control of that situation. Okay, sorry for going on a rant about that. That's something that I just wanted to pop in and say. So thank you for listening to that little extra editing portion, and I just hope that resonated. Thank you. With the See Beyond card and the divination, I am very much getting that you are my psychic or witchy pile in some way. And I think this is something that people compliment you on. And maybe the things they compliment you on, I don't always think you would necessarily associate with that sort of psychic or witchy side of you right away. It could be literally that you are a tarot reader yourself, that you practice divination. And if you do have that spiritual side, or you are open about your tarot readings, or you give tarot readings to other people, people really compliment you on this. They think that your readings are very accurate. They think that you are very gifted psychically. However, if that's not something you engage with, this could also be that people just think you are incredibly intuitive. People think you are gifted in picking up on things that others often can't pick up on. People really value your opinions on other people and on other situations because they think that you can read situations very well. You can pick up on undertones in conversations, you can clarify the underlying message, and you can give an opinion on the situation based on all the things that aren't said. It could be that you're very good on picking up on subtle body language that other people don't notice. You get complimented on the fact you can read people like a book, and this could result in a lot of your friends asking for your opinion on their partners or something like that. Or it could be that at your job, maybe you aren't involved in the hiring process directly, although you could well be, but it could be that even if you're not, your manager will ask for your opinion directly on potential new hires because they know that you can see through other people, you can see things that others can't. They know that you can rely on your intuition and that you are very talented on picking up on things like that. And if you do identify as being more witchy and you have a more witchy aesthetic, this is something that people compliment you on. They really like your style. Again, with this yin card showing up, it's like you dress in a way that really suits you. You might do your makeup or your hair, if you do that, in a way that really suits you. And this is something you get a lot of compliments on. This pile is giving me a kind of scorpionic energy, so you could identify as having Scorpio placements. However, I'm also getting fire sign with the lioness card showing up. And with this lioness card in particular, I think that people compliment you a lot on your bravery. I think people compliment you on your courage, on your ability to overcome adversity in some way. With the numbers showing up on the cards and me saying, like, maybe something significant happened at one of these ages, it could be that you battled something tremendously difficult at one of these ages, and the people who know that about you are incredibly proud of you for overcoming that and for having a lot of resilience with that situation. Maybe you had a very chaotic childhood or a chaotic home life, or just something quite traumatic happened to you at one of these ages. And I think that gives you the ability to like see beyond with this card. I think that has enhanced your intuition. Maybe you've gone through a stage at one point of being a little bit defensive because of the things you have been through, which if you have, that would be completely understandable. But it's like you've really worked hard to overcome that, and you are in this very brave and courageous lioness energy. And again, it says you have earned all your stripes. So it's like, yes, you've been through hardship, but with that, it's given you more of an ability to see beyond and to read more into situations and to understand things on a level that not everyone can. And I do feel like with this lioness card, maybe you have worked very hard on becoming more assertive, and people really respect and admire you for that. Maybe that's something they compliment you on. It could be that people have complimented you on your ability to be very connected to nature, maybe to handle animals in a very loving and empathetic way or something like that. Maybe a lot of animals gravitate towards you, and that's something that people admire about you. Maybe they say like, oh, my dog doesn't like anybody, but my dog is obsessed with pile 4, like they're always on pile 4's knee or something like that. It could be that you really have a strong bond with animals and people really notice this about you. It could be that you have an alternative hair colour, like the girl on this picture. Maybe you have a hair colour similar to that, or you have dyed your hair a similar colour to that in the past, and people have wanted to compliment you on that. Maybe it's like strangers have seen you and they've thought, oh wow, that is such a nice colour. I need to ask pal 4 what that colour is. I want that hair dye or something like that. But maybe they haven't had the courage to go and tell you that. And with the book as well on the card, it's making me think that maybe people compliment you on being well read or intelligent. They think that you have a lot of intellect and that maybe you are quite articulate. Maybe this is something that people notice in a work setting when you are sending emails, when you are writing, or when you are dealing with customers or something like that, if that's the case for you. Or maybe you do something where you have to speak publicly and this is something that people have noticed. Or maybe it's just in your everyday conversations, people notice that you are well read based on the knowledge that you have and the amount of information that you know, something like that. It could be that you're one of those people who kind of gathers facts about all different topics and you do deep dives on different topics, and then you seem to know a lot about a certain thing. And when you express this to people, it's like they're really impressed and they're like, wow, Pal 4 knows such a lot. I never knew this about XYZ, or something like that along those lines. And this is also a very superficial one, but with her wearing a bikini, it could be that people think that you look amazing in a bikini. And when you're at the beach, if you go to the beach, or if you wear swimwear, a bikini, or a swimming costume, or just if you're at the gym and you go in the pool or something, it could be that people want to give you a lot of compliments on the way you look. It could be your sense of fashion, or it could just be your body. People really like seeing you in that way. Okay, Pal 4, I hope you are enjoying the reading so far. That is what I have got for you with your oracle cards. We will now move on to the tarot portion of your reading, and that will be further confirmation of this energy. So I'll see you in the tarot portion. Hi, Pal 4, welcome to the tarot portion of your reading. Let's just get straight back into it and we'll have a look at the cards we got for you. Okay, Pal 4, so we have 8 of Cups in reverse. We have the 7 of Pentacles. We got that in Pile 3 as well. We have Death. Goodness. We have the 8 of Wands. We have the Page of Wands. We have the 9 of Wands in reverse. We have the Knight of Wands. And we have the Tower. Let me just check that all the cards are in frame, Pal 4. Please bear with me. Okay, so as I said, we did get the 7 of Pentacles in Pile 3 as well. So if you would like to look at Pile 3, if you think you might have more messages in there, then please feel free. I think overall this is a slightly different energy, but there is a little bit of overlap with the 7 of Pentacles. So with this 7 of Pentacles, I'm getting that a compliment that people give you is that you are hard to get, but they kind of like it. They feel like they have to make a lot of effort in order to get you. It could be that in the past, when, dealing with potential romantic situations, maybe you have been like a little bit closed off. Maybe you've had your guard up because of what you've experienced in the past. Maybe it's just because you do see right through people and people can sense this. Maybe when people approach you, it's like if you can sense and your intuition is telling you that they are not good for you, or they are not a good person, or a person that you will be interested in getting to know further, it's like you kind of shut it down immediately. Your boundaries are very strong. You can assert yourself, and that kind of makes people want you more. It's like if somebody's interested in you in that way and you shut it down, they're saying to their friends, they're like, oh, I'm trying so hard to get Pile 4, and they just won't even text me back. Like, I'm trying to take them on a date and they just won't even reply to me or something like that. And it's making them feel as if you are in some way like a reward, or you're so far above them. And I don't think that you think that way at all. It's not that you think that like you're above anyone. It's just you kind of have this sense of who is and isn't good for you. So if you get somebody approaching you in like F-girl or F-boy energy and you're not interested in that, it's like you're not going to give that person the time of day. You're not going to reply. You're going to have this guard up because you don't really want them to get to know you. But that just makes them try harder. It makes them kind of see you as a challenge to work towards. And they see this as a compliment. I don't know whether you do. But it's like the more you do this, the more they're interested in you, the more they want you. And people really admire with this 8 of Cups. It's like you're not a person who will stay in a stagnant energy With the death card in particular, I think you are a person who has gone through a lot of transformation and it hasn't always been easy. But with this Eight of Cups in reverse, it's like people know and respect you for the fact that you won't tolerate a stagnant situation. So if a relationship is no longer serving you, if it's becoming monotonous, if you are growing as a person and your partner isn't, or something like that, or they are refusing to, you won't stay in that situation for the sake of staying there. You know how to move on, and people really admire you for that. And it might make potential romantic partners feel as though they have to work hard to try and keep you, so that you don't get into this stagnant energy. So, with the death card, as I said, I think you are somebody who has been through a lot of transformation in your life. And this could be like you have made a lot of effort to work on yourself. You have been through a lot of traumatic or emotional situations. Maybe you were somebody who had a difficult childhood. Maybe you were somebody who had to grow up very fast, had to take on responsibility from an early age, be burdened in that way somehow. And maybe for a certain period of your life, it did make you have your guard up, and maybe you didn't have a lot of trust for people. So this has made you quite cautious. But it's like you've worked on yourself. So you've turned having that guard up into developing your sense of intuition. And maybe you have been learning to open up more, but to the right people or something like that. And people really respect you for this working on yourself, for establishing trust, for growing as a person. It could also be that you transform your body or your appearance in some way. The compliments that you might get behind your back could be something about your appearance, like maybe you've been in the gym more, you've had a consistent workout routine, you have been like sculpting or changing your body in some way via exercise, and maybe this is something that people are really noticing and they're complimenting you on. But maybe they're saying it not to you, but to other people. Maybe they're just saying things like, wow, Pal 4 is looking so good recently. Or it could even be that whatever transformation you go through in terms of your appearance, whatever you do, it always suits you, but it's like you've changed into this new person. It could be that people compliment you by saying things like, Pal 4 looks like a completely different person every time I see them, but they always suit their new hair or whatever they're wearing or something like that. It could be that, if you're somebody who changes your hair color a lot, like maybe you show up to an event one month and you have black hair in a bob, and then next time somebody at that event sees you a month later, you've got long blonde hair down to your bum or something like that. But it's like when people see you, they compliment you on the fact that you suit all these styles. You can be very versatile. So people might say something like, wow, Pal 4 just suits every single hair colour, even when they change it to something completely different, it looks great on them. Something like that. It doesn't have to be hair, it could just be anything in relation to aesthetic, anything to do with style, the way you dress yourself, just the way you look, or just the way you are in terms of your ability to change. People might feel as though you've really grown up a lot, and this might be something they compliment you on. With this Nine of Wands, people might compliment you behind your back on your ability to not compromise on the things that you don't want to compromise on. And I know that might sound a little bit weird, but I mean it in the way of like in terms of your boundaries or the standards you set for yourself or the people around you. If you have dealt with like difficult romantic relationships in the past and you have dealt with a lack of boundaries, it's like now you really stick up for yourself and you refuse to compromise in the sense that you won't settle for less. And that's something that people really admire about you. Some people might interpret it as quite stubborn, but ultimately you know what's best for you. You have a lot of that internal knowledge, that intuition to rely on. So ultimately you know that you can trust yourself. So the Page of Wands and the Knight of Wands showing up, it just reminds me of that Lioness card that we got in the Oracle. It really feels as though people compliment you on your fearlessness, your boldness. It feels as though maybe you are somebody who is quite free-spirited and this is something that people compliment you on. And I do think it kind of relates to your ability to stick up for yourself and maybe also to stick up for other people as well. there's something quite rebellious about you, but I don't think it's necessarily rebellious for the sake of like being controversial or trying to make a drama about something. It's not really about that. It could just be like if you feel as though at work, let's say, there is an unfair policy, maybe your managers are trying to make you adhere to this certain thing, and you think, no, that's not right. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm sticking to my boundaries. I'm going to say something about this. So you are quite courageous in saying, like, no, this policy is bullshit, essentially. Like, legally, we should be doing XYZ, so you can't tell us to do XYZ. It could be something like that, like you sticking up for a good cause. Maybe in like high school, you were a bit naughty or you were like a bit rebellious, you were a bit mischievous, you didn't really play by the rules. Maybe you found the school system quite difficult, the fact it was so rigid. Maybe you sort of need to be a bit more out of the box rather than like sticking to a very rigid routine. So it's like you have never really lost that energy of being that free spirit, of being a bit rebellious, but you have channeled it into something more positive. And this is something that people really respect about you, because you might be the only one in that workplace who will say something. You might be the only one who will stick up for yourself and for other people, something like that. Okay, pal 4, with this Tower card, I am really sensing that you are somebody with a chaotic energy, but people compliment you on this. You're the type of person where people will say, pal 4 just has such a chaotic energy, but I just love them for it. Another thing that people might really compliment you on is this Eight of Wands energy. It's like your ability to make quick decisions, to go at things in a speedy way, maybe to make like impulse decisions. So people could really admire the fact. I mean, let's use the example of you like changing your hair frequently or something like that. It could be that you're the type of person where you have a breakup, you experience a breakup, and you go and cut off all your hair or something like that, but people really admire you for that. They're like, wow, Pal 4 has this chaotic energy. They went and just cut off all their hair out of the blue. Like, they just did that out of nowhere. They felt like doing it one day, so they went and did it. And I really admire them for that. And honestly, they look really good. Like, who cares if it was a little bit unhinged of them to do that? Like, I think they look amazing for it. So good for them, kind of thing. Those could be the compliments that you get, that kind of chaotic, impulsive energy. It could also be that you kind of have a destructive energy about you, but please don't take that the wrong way. I don't mean it in the sense that you come in and you destroy people's lives or anything like that. I'm just sensing that you are somebody who comes into people's lives and you are a shock for them in some way, but it's a very, very good shock, but it just makes them change their perspective on certain things. So it could be something as simple as like you meet somebody and they don't expect to have such strong feelings for you, but maybe you destroy their notion on what they think their type is. Like if they have a usual type and it's not you, let's say, maybe you destroy that notion because suddenly they've got these really intense feelings for you. They've got these feelings that have kind of come in quite quick. They've come out of nowhere and now they feel very, very strongly for you and like they want to pursue you, but it's been quite shocking for them, like they weren't expecting it. It could just be that people compliment you in the way that you are unexpected in some way, like maybe you're not what people think you will be, and that is the Tower moment for them, like something about you shocks them, but in a good way. It's something they really like about you. Maybe if you are very attractive physically, maybe it's that people don't realize until they get to know you a bit more that you are also very articulate, very intelligent. But when they get to know this about you, it's something that they like even more and something that they really value and appreciate. Okay, that is what I am getting for you, Pal 4. I really, really hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope that it resonated. If even one tiny little part of the reading did resonate with you, please let me know. Please like the video, please leave a comment, and if at all possible, please subscribe. Thank you very much for listening, Pal 4. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.